Thank you. Thank you.
Round one, fight.
All right.
Or something.
Mo, are you up and running?
I am good to go, sir. Looking forward to
Wonderful.
it.
All right. So, to the chat, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are going to be talking about race and racism. Do they exist? We have three debaters, three contestants, so to speak. JS says race doesn't exist and racism doesn't exist. Re-examination show says race doesn't exist, but racism does. And Mo Rebuttal says racism does exist and so does race. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to JS. He's going to have 5 minutes to give us why he has the stances he does, his opening, and then we'll move through all three of them. I'm going to pull up the timer right now, and I will start it on JS's starting.
And I'm going to do 5 minutes just on race right now, and then 5 minutes on racism later, or both of them right now.
You could just do both of them.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And go.
Okay, so race and racism. First things first, we're going to have to figure out what race means. So I'm going to need a good definition that we can all agree on for what race means. Is it skin color? A lot of people will say race is your skin color, which is determined by pigment and melanin in your skin, which is mainly determined by sunlight and climate. That will influence how much melanin and pigment you have. I don't think that's going to be a good metric. I don't think any of you guys are going to say that it's just skin color. The majority of people nowadays seem to think if you Google race or racism definition, you're going to see power and prejudice. I don't think, we can talk about that if that's for racism, but we still need to figure out what race is. Is it ethnicity? Is it culture? What is it? Because if we say it's ethnicity, well, then we got to figure out, well, what's ethnicity? Even ethnicity is going to be an arbitrary metric. If you say ethnicity is biology and your ancestry, well, what's the arbitrary time frame that we're picking? Because if you go back 50 years, my ethnicity is Floridian. If you go back 400 years, maybe my ethnicity is German. If you go back 1,000 years, maybe my ethnicity is somewhere in Asia. I believe in Adam and Eve, but even if you believe in evolution, there's still going to be an origin of the species. So if we go back far enough and we don't just pick an arbitrary time, if we go back to the beginning, then we're all going to have the same ethnicity. We're all going to have the same heritage, the same lineage. So it can't be ethnicity. Is it culture? If I like hip hop and I like Cadillacs with big rims on them, does that make me part of the black culture or the African American culture? What if you're a Canadian Jamaican? You're not African American, but you're black. How do we decide what these words mean? And we can get pretty deep into that. I don't want to get pedantic about the meaning of existence, but existence is to have actual being, to be real, to be present, to live. Synonyms are like survival, living. We don't have to get, I don't have to get weird about existence, but I could to say that ideas and concepts, social constructs don't actually exist. They're just in our mind. If I believe in ghosts, but ghosts aren't real, does my belief in ghosts exist? Does a belief exist? These are all things we're going to have to figure out. Once we come to some sort of agreement, then I can proceed to break all of these definitions, all these ideas can be broken. I think when most people talk about racism, they're saying when you oppress or demean or discriminate against somebody based off of skin color, I would say that's fake and that's not what's happening. When we're doing what's called a racism, we're actually just being hateful. And I don't think that there should be typologies for hate. I don't think we should have different categories of what hate is. If we call things be not as it were, then we blur the lines, and there's no consistent metric for what this thing is. We should just call it hate or stupidity. It's dumb, hateful people doing dumb, hateful things. I'm going to show you examples of things like Daryl Davis infiltrating the KKK by talking to them on the phone, writing letters to them. And when they meet this black man, he makes people leave the KKK because they see that they've never actually met a black man. They had this idea in their head of what black people were. When they meet a good one, they're like, oh, I was totally wrong about the blacks. I'll go through examples of celebrities that say racism doesn't exist. And really, I think this is just a Marxist idea that's used to control people. It controls usually white people through fear because they're afraid of being called racist. It controls usually black people by saying that they're oppressed and that people are all racist towards them. And I don't like these ideas, so I'm going to push back against them. And that's all I got.
Abe, if you said something, nobody heard it.
Yep.
Yeah. So, okay. Thank you, JS, for that. That was your 5 minutes. I love it. That was pretty good. All right. Now we're going to go on to re-examination show. Give me 1 second to reset that timer, and then we will start it up. On your go.
All right. Tonight, 2 questions are asked. Does race exist, and does racism exist? I deny that race exists. However, I affirm that racism exists. I'm defining race as the perceived lineage which separates people as different ontologically, morally, or hierarchically based on their genetics, their lineage. Anything else people want to call race boils down to skin pigments, phenotype, and some form of homogenized nationality. The idea itself is unhelpful, even conventionally. Its usage of classification is better suited by phenotype and color, but its history and legacy today have moral baggage. Let's start here. If a population of Latinos and a population of Asian subcontinental people, such as from India and Bangladesh, were to intermarry en masse, would they form one new race, or would they all be considered biracial until the end of time? Some people just map race onto phenotype, color, or ethnicity, which is ultimately self-ID, but how does an idea of race have an essence or distinguish anything? Since there are arbitrary line-drawing questions about what race is and how it divides, would it be feasible to say there are no races, just force? Think about it. In Loving versus Virginia case, interracial marriage was forbidden, not based on anything real, but by force guided by an idea of racism. Same is true for those who are considered white. The Irish, Italians, and Jews were not considered white when coming to America. Today, it's totally different. Why? No social pressures. Otherwise, if common convention makes race exist, we would also have to say that rights exist. But my opponents tonight will not sign off on that particular claim. What do we say to those who claim racism doesn't exist? It's been said people hate crime, so they look at statistics and hate black people because they hate crime. But this won't do. Ota Benga was an African pygmy who was kept in the monkey house exhibit in the Bronx Zoo in the early 1900s. Is this because they hated monkeys? No, they were treating him as inferior. Were the Yahtzees depicting Jays as rats because they hate rats? No, it's because they hated Jays. When the past leader of the Toronto Black Lives Matter chapter claims that melanin turns light into knowledge, is that not a claim of superiority by perceived lineage? She said back in 2017, whiteness is not humanness. Quote, I'm going to quote this. Whiteness is not humanness. In fact, white skin is subhuman. All phenotypes exist within the black family, and white people are a genetic defect of blackness. White people have a higher concentration of enzymes that suppress melanin production. They are genetically deficient because melanin is present at the inception of life. Melanin enables black skin to capture light and hold it in its memory mode, which reveals the blackness converts light into knowledge, she claims at one point. Melanin directly communicates with cosmic energy. White people are regressive genetic defects. This is factual, unquote. It doesn't get any clearer than this, folks. race doesn't exist because every justification for this is unnecessary as a category and is arbitrary, but racism does. And the idea of race motivates the force that keeps this perception going. It's much easier, actually, to prove that the zodiac exists because you actually have measurable times between when people can get born on a date and where the planets are, as opposed to an arbitrary idea that's much easier explained by phenotype, which actually classifies people by a geographic area that have certain features. But race itself, for example, doesn't explain the phenomenon of are they white or are they Jewish? Are they white or are they Irish? What are the Spanish? Are the Spanish European? Does that mean that the Spanish are white? Does that mean that the Greeks are white? Does that mean that, what about the Slavs? Are they white? You know, and then what about divisions within perceived races such as yellow bone or red bone of about who's blacker or who's less black and who's in the in group and who's in the out group? And you'd have to also explain if race does exist, but it's not a commission of some kind of ontological, hierarchical, or moral essentialism of people, then why is racism, the idea of race itself, associated with all these permissions and these claims about people? Why isn't racism just saying, well, people are different then? Why is it an association with hate and division? That's my understanding of it, and I'd like to hear any alternatives.
All right. Thank you for that, Rex. There we go. All right. And Mo, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. On the marks.
Yeah. So as it is becoming tradition with Foursquare, my intros are usually pretty short and to the point. So this one won't be any different. I did notice a few things interesting in their openings. Rex claims that race is not helpful or unnecessary. Helpful and unnecessary. I would disagree, and we can get into why. JS made a point that when someone is doing a racism, that's not what's going on. That's an interesting claim. I'd like to explore that some more. That seems to imply that he has somehow access to other minds. This is going to be interesting to discuss. But just to keep it short, I affirm both race and racism exist. My opponents are in a very strange position tonight. They're going to argue that something people constantly recognize, constantly use, constantly act on somehow doesn't exist. So I'm going to press them on a few things. They need to explain how a category that clearly operates in the real world isn't real. And they need to explain how people can be treated differently based on perceived traits without that behavior actually existing or having a name. If they can't do both, their position collapses. I'm looking forward to showing them how. So let's get into it.
Like you said, short and sweet. That was pretty short and sweet. So, all right, gentlemen. Now that we have those out of the way, we have to move into our second phase. So, I guess let's do just a short spurt here where you three can discuss what you mean by race and what you mean by racism, and then we can do the cross-examinations. Do you want to make and agree on a specific definition?
I'm good with that. I can throw out what I consider race to be.
Yeah, I need the. Well, I'm the negative on both, so I need them to tell me what race and racism. I mean,
so it would be.
Well,
I'll just go. Yeah, I'll go ahead and throw this out. So for my working definition, it's a socially recognized classification of people based on perceived immutable physical traits. So things like skin tone, facial structure, hair type. Typically, and this is important, linked to ancestry and historical geographical clustering.
Okay. So ancestry and historical geographic clustering. When are we looking at to determine this, where their ancestry and their historical geographic clustering is?
When exactly?
Yeah, well, like when are we going back to?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a fallacy.
It's a fallacy.
I
Well,
don't know why. It's a fallacy even.
I mean, your argument. You made an argument from
man.
consensus.
You got a fallacy, bro. Your epistemology.
You had a fallacy in your opening. It was an argument from consensus. Yeah, just
No,
because
no.
a lot
Okay,
of
I'll
people see it
explain.
and
I'll
recognize it
explain
as
why.
real.
I'll explain exactly why it's a fallacy because you do this with race as well, and it's called a continuum fallacy. JS, tell me, when does a grain of sand become a beach?
No, I'm not making it. I'm going back to the origin.
Yes, you
I'm
are.
going back
You're
to the
asking.
beginning.
You're asking. You're asking where? Just because history changes and shifts and people migrate, it doesn't mean that you can't trace ancestry back to geographical locations. So it would matter. It would depend on which race you're looking at. Now, also, you have to consider that race is an umbrella term, right? Just like white. There's many different people or sub ethnicities inside the white race. African also has the same thing. So its ethnicity is a subset of race.
Okay,
Well-
but my point is what I said in my opening. You're picking an arbitrary time of when you're deciding on the geographic clustering and the ancestry. I would prescribe that
No.
we go back to the origin of species, to the very beginning. And if we go back to the
Mhm.
beginning, whether you believe in Adam and Eve or you believe in evolution, whatever, I know we all.
Well, actually, I know we're just doing this. Hey, we're doing like a short spurt here, but I just have an actual. I'd like to get into my actual argument here, if that's fine. I don't know if you want to do that or we don't want to continue this definition game.
Well, I gave my
Well-
definition in my opening statement. I think. Does anybody remember it? You want me to restate it?
You
You
said
could restate it.
lineage.
Go ahead and restate it.
Go ahead. So I'm defining race as the perceived lineage which separates people as different ontologically, morally, or hierarchically.
Perceived.
Perceived, because I believe racism is a belief. Racism corresponds to race, and so I think race is a fictional idea that divides people. And if it's not, then phenotype takes over from there, or color takes over from there. Or any heritable trait. But what I don't see is some emergent property called race that comes from heritable traits, phenotypes, or colors.
So two black people have an albino child. Is it a different race?
No, because I believe in, like you, the human race. That race does not exist.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, so
Well,
I
we're-
think just to keep things structured, maybe we tackle race first and then go into racism. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay.
Well,
So
okay, so
go ahead.
hold on. So do we want to do the 3 or the 2-to-1 crossover for it, or are we just doing open? Because
Well, I haven't given like my real argument unless to be cross-examined, but we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, Abe, it's your call to
Their
see
call.
where you want the 2v1 be pointed, because we're all taking turns on that.
yeah, well, let's just do. I guess we could grind the gears a little bit here and just let you guys
Okay.
argue over your positions, and then we can do the verses.
Mhm.
That way, people are a little bit more clear on what each other's stances are, I guess, because if you can't agree on the definitions, then you got to fight that out first.
I'm fine with using the both their definitions are basically phenotype and lineage.
Would you
So-
would you both agree with that?
Well, yeah, except Mo does not have any metaphysical component to his definition of race. So that's a big difference, because I'm associating race with racism, and that would have a moral, ontological, or hierarchical claim, whereas his does not. His is descriptive, and I think that the problem with that is if he's not talking about phenotype or color or even like ethnicity, which is still a kind of probably the most vague of all, then I don't know what work.
Well, no, my definition has like immutable characteristics in it: skin tone, facial structure.
Also,
hair.
it's phenotype.
So it sounds like we need to start with race, and it's going to be you, Rex, and JS versus Mo, because you both say
Just like I like it.
it doesn't exist, and Mo says it does.
Glutton for
And
punishment.
This seems to be your first contention, so let's go ahead and start with that one.
All right, so 10
okay.
minutes for the cross examination.
Yeah, let's do
About
it.
and we're about race. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Cool.
All right, let's get to it.
So, Mo, what is the emergent thing between phenotype, color, ethnicity, and all the above that gives us race? What does race actually describe?
As I said, race describes. So when you talk about white, black, those are umbrella terms that would encapsulate different ethnicities across different groups.
What does that do that phenotype does not?
What does what do?
What does the word race do that phenotype does not?
What does race do that phenotype does not? Well, the phenotype is the descriptor that you use to cluster what people consider race.
So phenotype is race?
It is a part of the descriptor of the race that people generally agree on and identify different groups. So example, like if someone said that, hey, Rex, me and you live in a community, right? And then someone came by and said, let's say it's predominantly white community, and someone said, hey, a Somali family just moved in next door. What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
No.
What do you think they look like?
You mean visually? Yeah, they probably have more of a they're probably thin, they probably have more of a narrow head, they would have black skin. That's what I would come to mind based on that who's typically in the nation of Somalia. Yes.
And they don't speak English very good.
And they go to Minnesota.
That could potentially be it, yeah. Yeah, that could potentially be it too. So yeah.
Okay.
But this is just general descriptors of reality that where people
and
is this out of.
So your idea of race is loose then?
No, it's not necessarily loose, because it's kind of like saying, okay, race is a sedan, and then when you talk about ethnicity, then it's a 2021 Honda Accord. Does that make sense?
Sure. I guess.
Okay.
But again, how is that different than phenotype? Because you said phenotype is part of it, meaning that phenotype in and of itself does not do enough to equate to what race is. So I'm trying to figure out what the other components are that make the emergent property of race that you're describing.
Well, usually it's linked to ancestry, typically by geographical location.
So it's genetic.
Genetics plays a large role, yes.
Didn't you say in your video that race doesn't have to be biological, or did I mishear you?
I don't believe I ever said that. No.
Interesting. I'm gonna want to. I should have got the timestamp for that.
You said immutable characteristics. Immutable meaning they're born with it and it can't be changed.
Yeah, it's things that they're born with that can't be changed. Yes, correct.
Okay. Well, Michael Jackson was born a poor black boy and he died a rich white woman. So, I mean, you could bleach your skin. You could bleach your skin,
and
you could straighten your hair.
Was that so? If I get a boob implant, does that make me a woman, JS?
No.
Okay, thank you.
But
stupid argument.
Hold on, it's not a stupid argument. It's not a stupid argument because no, there's a follow-up question to it.
Go ahead.
So is it self-identified, or is it how you outwardly present to people?
Once again, my definition has to do with ancestry, geographical location, and
we can look in somebody's genes and see if they're a male or a woman. We can look at
and you can look at their genes and find different things that separate them by race too. Sickle cell, for instance. Yeah. Sickle cell is a very common thing amongst the Black community, JS.
But it's not required to have sickle cell, right?
Right. And the majority of time, race is self-identified. So it would be like, you'd give me a form and it would say, what race are you?
What do you mean by self-identified?
Self-identified.
You mean I check a box? Does that mean make reality, JS?
So what's my race?
If I say I'm a woman on my driver's license,
am I a woman? What's my race?
What's your race? You would be categorized as white. Now, if we want to talk about your ethnicity, then we can talk about, are you German? Are you Italian? We can drill down into it.
I got some news for you. I thought I heard you correctly. At the 4-minute 35 mark of your video, racism isn't real, a rebuttal, you say you don't even have to claim race is biological. What did you mean by that?
Well, if you play the whole thing, my rebuttal, it says the comment was, you don't even have to claim this to use this argument. So it was saying that I don't even need to rely on that in order to make the argument. Maybe you should watch the whole video.
I did watch the whole video, but I thought there was a strange thing to say. Oh, please expand on that for me, because I think that's useful.
Well, that was a very long time ago, I'll be honest with you, but I do remember that part. I'd have to bring up my syllogism, so if you bear with me, I can, but that might make for a boring stream.
I can. Let's see.
I don't know, but you said I'm white. What if my dad's black?
If your dad's black,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So once again, this is the continuum fallacy. So
No,
just
the
because you
question would be
cannot
no.
point
Here,
to-
here, no, here's what he's getting at. It's
if
not
you
a
have
contingent.
a,
saying things are
no, hold
fallacies
on.
that aren't
If you have, let's say, oh, I have 10% black in me. So does that make me, what am I? Well, it's like, okay, just because it's like you don't, just because it's a fuzzy
So you get to decide my
category.
race. So
No, this is reality. If it's a fuzzy, just because something's a fuzzy category does not mean two categories don't exist. A grain of sand and a beach still exist, even though you can't point to exactly when one turns to the other.
So what? So are you saying
but
that
I know
the person
you keep
exists
telling me
with,
what continuum fallacy is, but you made it.
Well, you don't seem to understand it.
You made it appeal to consensus in your opening statement, dude. So we can
Okay,
play the debate bro fallacy game, or
No,
you
what
could tell me if my
your
dad is
argument
black-
hinges on this, and that's why it's hilarious because
No,
you
my
commit this
argument
fallacy
hinges
all the
on
time.
you are going to make a bunch of arbitrary claims like lineage and phenotypes and geographic
I didn't make
location
arbitrary. No,
based off of an arbitrary place and time. You're not going to
No.
go back. I'm going to go to the origins.
yeah, let me read your
Okay, that's
argument
great.
verbatim. So everybody, and it's your argument. So I'm looking at the screen right now. It says counter argument. Premise 1, many real and useful categories have fuzzy or conventional dependent boundaries. Premise 2, a category's lack of universal boundary does not imply the category is unreal or meaningless. Premise 3, race can be a fuzzy category while still being socially recognized and used in practice. C, therefore, race has no universal standard, does not logically entail, quote, racism isn't real, or, quote, race isn't real. You don't even have to claim race as biological. This works even if it's social. So is your argument that race is not can be non-biological and still be just as real
No,
as if it was
no.
biological?
Once again, what I meant by that is you could even make the claim that it's a social construct and still use the argument. That was my claim.
But it's a social construct about physical genetic phenomena.
Yeah. Do you understand that like I'm making a main argument and then I'm saying that, hey, if you want to even like take the biological out of it, you can still make it work. You understand the difference?
Yeah, but how does that leave race? Is it real with any meaning at the end of it if you make it completely social?
I'm not. You're
Right, but
attributing that to one comment that I put in there, but an offhand note that, hey guys, if you want to use this argument, you don't necessarily have to use it from a biological stance.
Okay, so let's say I don't use it from a biological stance. What am I talking about? Just people's beliefs?
I'm saying that it's still descriptively true that people will act on perception and what they see.
Right, but how does that begin to be useful then if it's not even having to do with biology or genetics or anything like that? Like because we say it doesn't have to be biological.
Wait. You're injecting the word useful in this scenario. That syllogism did not imply that like necessarily this is something to live by. It's just that this thing exists.
Well, I mean, if a thing exists and I'm trying to think of a term that exists and describes something, but is not useful. You're saying I'm injecting useful, but the whole point of the word is to capture an idea that distinguishes itself from other ideas.
Intrinsic rights. How about that? Intrinsic rights. That's
Intrinsic
a
rights?
descriptor, and people use it all the time, but it doesn't, it doesn't necessarily not necessarily reality or useful, right?
So then, if the idea of race is reinforced by social pressures, then it's just as real as rights,
or empathy.
If it has force behind it, then yeah, you can make a lot of things to reality.
So tomorrow, if I grab all of the pew-pews and I say that all the JJs get out of America, then because they're not white, does that become descriptively true after power is applied?
What become descriptively true?
That the Jays are no longer white.
They're not here.
No, that they're no longer
here.
They're no longer the same race as somebody who shares the same facial structure and skin pigment.
Well, that would be racism. So that would make racism real.
So, but would that make race real where it wasn't before?
It would make race real in the context of they're using a race in order to justify their horrible acts.
But if they didn't think of the idea until later, the race didn't exist until they enforced the idea they had, right? If it was all conceptual.
Well, no, it's a description. It's descriptively true. They're just using it in a untoward way.
Gentlemen,
well,
that is
clock is out.
time. Do you feel like you've made any headway?
No, I still don't know what race is.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
We've done our
All
job.
right. Great. That's good stuff because it just means that the open part will be more ferocious. Where would we like to go now? Who wants to be in the 1v2 hot seat next?
I'll do it just to
JS?
rip the band-aid off, I guess.
Okay, that's fair with me. So here's the contention. Rex says there's no such thing as race, but there is racism. You two can pick that apart and ask some questions.
Yeah.
And-
So here's a question, Rex. So you affirm that racism is real, but race is not, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So how can something that people do, racism, right? That is the presupposition of that would be their race would have to exist for them to enact these things, right?
No.
They would have to. They're presupposing race. So how can racism exist and race doesn't?
Because race is a claim about ontological, hierarchical, and moral differences that are attributed by lineage to essentialize a person to say this
Well,
is.
No. That's not the claim. That's not the definition of race. That's not always used.
That's what racism is. So why wouldn't that
Okay.
be? Why wouldn't
Right,
that
racism.
Right. Why wouldn't that go back to race?
But what is it referencing? What is a reference for racism if racism exists?
That's the imagination. So you're using arbitrary
The
things.
imagination?
Yes, you are using arbitrary metrics to make ontological, hierarchical, and moral judgments about a person and their lineage and anybody who you perceive to be in their lineage, so as to demark them as lesser than, or your enemy, or your outgroup, or worse than you on a moral scale.
So even if it's let's say it's racism, right? So let's say these people just have crazy ideas. They're still basing it on something that they're pointing at.
Okay,
What is that thing if it's not real?
Well, let me give you a counterexample. Let's say that there are people who believe reptilians
Well,
are real.
I'd like you to answer the question.
I have to illustrate. I want to illustrate this so it's clear.
Can you give me the answer and then qualifier?
Okay, sorry. Give me the question again.
Okay, so if someone's doing a racism, right?
Mhm.
What are they referencing if race doesn't exist?
Their perception of physical characteristics and lineage. Can I give my clarifier?
And well,
Can I give my
what is that?
Okay, great. I'll give you my clarifier. Let's say this group of people
Right.
who believe reptilians exist. They believe,
Mhm.
and then let's say this cult breaks off into three branches. The first branch says red-haired people are reptilians. The second branch says blonde-haired people are reptilians. The third branch says brunettes are reptilians. Now, they all are using arbitrary metrics to come to a conclusion about people, about things that aren't real. The thing that they think isn't real, right? Their conclusion is not real, but it's based on real things that they attribute with unreal ideas.
So in this scenario, there's a problem with this
Mhm.
example because you can prove that reptilians don't exist. I need you to prove to me race doesn't exist in order to even go with this example.
I would have to know what the delineation of race is, because all we're saying is like, well, race is either biological, in which case I don't know whether biracial exists in any sense, because you'd have to say if biracial exists, then that race is like a solid block that a person is divided. And this goes into like what I call the ice cream fallacy, where if you're white and then you have like 30% blackness in you, you'll become black. And it's arbitrary. Whereas if you have 50% whiteness in you and you're Asian, you're still considered Asian or something.
Why then, in the example when I asked you about the Somalis moving next door, you knew exactly what they would look like, or at least a general idea of what they would look like if race doesn't exist?
Well, because I can use phenotype for that. I don't have to use race. I don't know what race has to do.
And
with
that
it.
is, but that's what everyone considers race. That's what everyone.
Not you,
talks about
because
when
I
they talk
asked
about
you
race.
if it's phenotype race, and you said it's part of it. And so
You're saying the thing doesn't exist, but the belief in the thing exists.
Correct.
Okay.
Like you could I wouldn't say Islam doesn't exist because Allah doesn't exist.
Right.
Hey,
So-
JS, this is supposed to be a cross examination, just so you know. But anyway,
Right. Here's the problem. I'm the yes no, and you guys are the
Yeah,
no
well,
no
you-
and the yes yes. So I'm in the awkward position of like having to defend both premises at once.
It's called a steel man moat.
yeah. So, well, you maybe could ask a
try it.
question too, but maybe you try asking a question and actually do a cross
Oh, I
examination.
have questions. And I'm going
Go
to
ahead.
critique his opening. He said the Yahtzees were racist because they killed the Jays, or they drew pictures of the Jays as rats. The Yahtzees also killed gays, blacks, people of their own race with different hair colors.
Mhm.
So they weren't racist. They were just hateful and evil.
Let's just put that. Let's put all the other things. I'll just grant you all the other things.
The only smart thing Whoopi Goldberg ever said was the Yahtzees weren't racist. They
well,
were
that's
just
because she's racist against the Jays. But anyway, the point is, so when you say that they weren't racist, they just made a people into a subhuman group. How do you square that circle?
If I would call it hate, I wouldn't call it racism.
Okay,
You're saying the belief in the thing exists. I'm saying the belief in the thing is faulty. It's not real because it's based off of conditioning. It's social conditioning. It's the environment they grew up in. It's things that they were taught. And usually those things are wrong and they could be convinced out of those things. That's why I brought up Daryl Davis.
Okay, well, all those things can be true, but just because it's hate doesn't mean it's not racism. And there's no reason not to qualify what kind of system we're talking about. Because, for example, if I say, oh, that's not Islam, it's just terrorism, that's just a cope, okay? You have to take it for what it really is, the belief system that's hampering it. You attack it on the belief system level if you want to identify it. Because if you don't attack it on the belief system level, you're neutering the necessary components and weapons to destroy the source of the violence and the discrimination and the hate itself.
You're giving power to the enemy by making all these different categories and typologies of hate. And that's why we have things like sexism, homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, racism.
Well, you're giving power to the enemy by taking away our ability to call it what it is.
No, I'm calling it what it is. You're calling it what it's not.
No, I'm identifying the structure by which they use logic in order to come to racist conclusions. They're saying because of your lineage, you are ontologically inferior, hierarchically inferior, or we're superior or something like that, or morally inferior, and it's immutable. They're saying these metaphysical things are ontologically true of you because of your genetics.
Metaphysical, like... Is this transcendental racism?
What it is a statement about different hierarchies in human nature. So obviously it wouldn't be transcendental to humans if you're categorizing other humans as lesser than yourself or yourself greater than others, if you're attributing it to their lineage, which has nothing to do with your moral, ontological, or hierarchical state.
Why? Okay, you said that a few times. Why exactly does a descriptor of a race inherently mean that there's hierarchical?
Because that's how racism is used.
No, race, not racism.
Well, racism is the belief in race, so it corresponds to what race is. So if I believe in Islamism, that's dependent upon Islam.
No. Let's simplify it. I'm a German guy.
Yeah.
And there's a sub-Saharan African guy.
Yeah.
Those are two like descriptors of a race, or I'm white, I'm black, right? Well, I'm white, someone else is black. In that statement, where's the hierarchy that I'm imposing?
In the description of phenotype, none.
So race exists.
So race is phenotype.
Great. Part of it, yeah. Based on
what's the rest of it?
Immutable characteristics.
What's the rest of it? If it's race is phenotype, then what's the rest of it?
Ancestry.
For the dumb
everybody has
ancestry.
ancestry.
Ancestry based on clustering.
Every ancestry, just about every ancestry is based on clustering. I mean, the whole point of proximity is you marry who's close to you. So you're going to, on average, look
maybe
like
you
your
should
community.
Maybe you should go to this fictitious site 23andMe and find out where your ancestry is.
Didn't that get shut down?
I don't know.
But anyway, everybody has an ancestry.
Started by Mormons.
Everybody has. The
point is they're using the descriptors to show, and that even in that they show geographical clustering to show the race and ethnicity of the people that they get the blood.
I got one last question before time runs out.
Go ahead, JS.
Yeah.
If I could give you an example of God saying a certain nation of people were despicable and he's going to wipe them off the face of the earth, just a certain group of people, does that make God racist?
No, that's a moral category because that has nothing to do with your genetics. If you could use that as a description of culture. For example, you can read Romans 11 and talk about how the Jews have a partial hardening, but partial hardening, I mean, there's a judgment to that, but that doesn't mean that if you're of a certain bloodline, you're less capable of coming to God or things like that. It just describes what's going on spiritually, but not genetically, which is what we're getting at, is heritable traits from your parents.
Exactly. It's spiritual. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but powers and principalities and wickedness in high places.
Right.
That's what racism is. It's not a physical thing. It's a spiritual thing. You have a spiritual issue with a person who looks different than you, talks different than you. And if we keep breaking all these into different categories, we get all these isms that don't exist instead of just calling it what it is, which is hate.
You can't call it is without precision.
It's just dumb. Usually it's just dumb.
You can't call it what it is without precision. So if you use all this censorship on yourself to say, well, I can't nail exactly what this person believes and show why the fallacies are in the guts of their belief system, because then if I do that, I'm giving power. It's like, no, you're taking it away as soon as you nail it. That's time.
And that is time. Man, you guys are trying to be as spicy as possible, it seems.
Oh, you haven't seen nothing yet. Wait.
Uh-oh.
Wait when it opens up.
He's bringing out the nukes.
I've got something.
Oh, that's a local commercial. I can't use that one.
What is happening?
I don't know, Abe. We can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay. The timer has stopped, and it's like beeping, but won't stop beeping.
Oh, we don't hear
Maybe it's your taco that's going off in the background. You forgot in the microwave.
Abe's tacos.
Hold on.
It'd be hilarious if you dressed like that.
It'd
be hilarious if you dressed like that and you went in the corner and had Abe's taco stand. Like, what are you
Give me
doing?
1 second, gentlemen.
We'll be right back after this.
To that.
Hey, everybody.
I'll be
It's a
right back.
sunny day in California. Steamy 81 degrees outside.
Hey, Days, it's a scummy day in California. Look at our
It's
governor.
a scummy day because we're all a bunch of degens, but you know.
Yeah. The beach is strewn by abandoned RVs.
All right. Sorry about that, gentlemen.
Hey,
That
JS,
was weird.
we're over you.
All right. So, JS is saying that neither exist at all, and he knows best. So, basically, you gentlemen have to argue with JS about why you could make the claim that neither of them exist in reality.
We only see partial clock, by the way. Oh, almost
you know
there.
what? You know what?
I do know what. I do know what. That's why I can tell you.
Can you? Can you tell me?
He's making it look nice and fancy. He's getting it.
The fancy clock.
There we go.
All right. And go.
All right.
Yes, in your opening, you said that when someone does a racism, that's not what they're doing. What do you mean by that, sir?
They're just doing hateful, evil acts.
How do you know this?
Because that's what it is. It's if I whoop somebody's ass because they're black, and I say I hate black people, and I beat their ass. It's not that's not race. When you think this way.
Wow, I didn't think you'd fall apart this easy on one question. Go ahead.
That's how you get hate crimes.
Okay, but how do you know, sir?
You believe in
this
hate crimes. You believe somebody should get an amplified.
That's not answer the question.
Hate crime?
That's not answer the question. How do you know?
It's like a cross exam. I'm not allowed to ask questions. I forgot.
This is well, you didn't answer the question. So how do you know? You didn't answer.
I said hate, evil, dumb.
Hate. So if someone is being racist, or they would you say that's a hateful act?
No, I don't think you can be racist.
Okay, but how do you know they're not being racist? Do you have access to other minds?
You're begging the question. You're saying if somebody's being racist, does that mean that they're evil? I'm saying
okay, that's fine. But how do you know they're not being racist? Let's go back to the original question. How do you know they're not being racist?
Because it doesn't exist.
That's not that means nothing. You're just reasserting that it doesn't exist without telling me exactly how you know they're not being racist.
Well, because we already discussed race doesn't exist. It's arbitrary, inconsistent, subjective, usually self-identified.
Okay, hold on.
So you're not
You
gonna
can't
answer the
really
question?
tell my race. You can just say I'm white. Which
JS,
is color.
Not gonna answer the question, are
JS,
we?
I got a question for
I did
you.
answer the question.
When they put
No, you
Otabenga,
didn't.
an African pygmy black man, in the monkey house of the Bronx Zoo in the early 1900s, was that not because of his perceived lineage and the value they gave to him because of it?
No, it's because they were dumb, angry people.
They're dumb, angry people, and so
Yeah.
it's so mind-numbing, dude. So they didn't have any reason based on his looks to put him in the monkey cage that they thought was appropriate.
Could have been. Okay, so it's looksism.
Okay, so he looks like what?
So you're just renaming what racism is?
No, I think that would be stupid too. I'm just showing how nonsensical it is.
Then why did the black ministers in New York come to the zoo and say this is horrible, this is demeaning based on race? You know, their idea of race. Why would they do that? Is it because they were loving people and like the zoo is like run by hateful people, hateful dumb people? Then why? That's ridiculous. So then why didn't they get all sorts of humans and put them in all sorts of exhibits if they're just hateful dumb people caging people?
I think they were influenced by worldly ideas that didn't make sense. So like the term racism came from the term racialism, which was coined by William Henry Pratt. And I think that's his name, right?
It's a Wikipedia article.
No, Richard Henry Pratt, who said the South having black slaves is racist. That's racialism. But Richard Henry Pratt started the school where they were killing Native American kids.
That's supposed
Based
to
on
prove
what?
something?
That's not racialism, but white people having slaves in the South, that was racialism.
That
So
sounds like a
it's
big non
inconsistent.
sequitur. I don't know what you're even trying to prove.
So wait, just
I'm trying to
because
prove that the term
two
is nonsense,
situations in
people
history
believe in
don't perfectly fold into each other coherently, that proves it doesn't exist? Is that your stance, really?
Yeah, there's just made up words used to control people.
Okay, so once again, I'm sorry, I feel like this really wasn't answered. How do you know someone's not being racist?
Because it doesn't exist.
That's just reasserting the claim.
No, you're asking. I say racism doesn't exist. How do you know somebody's not being racist? Because it doesn't exist.
How do you know somebody
Your claim-
doesn't hate somebody because of their lineage?
How do I know somebody doesn't hate somebody because of their lineage?
Yes. So if somebody says this guy is black, I'm going to put him in the monkey cage, or I see him as inferior to us, and I think this is appropriate, you don't think that that is based on their lineage, a lineage-based inferiority judgment?
No, they don't know their lineage.
That's not the question. They made an assessment of their lineage, whether they know it or not. That's their impression, and they thought it was appropriate to put this guy in the monkey house in the Bronx Zoo.
Maybe it's because he looked like a monkey.
So attributing it to his physical characteristics.
Yeah.
That's
So-
racism.
That's
racism.
racism and race.
I think it's just dumb.
It is both.
Well, you can think it's dumb. Look, Jace, we can agree that it's dumb.
You can do
but
two
it doesn't
things
mean it
at
doesn't
once.
exist, and that's what they act. Yeah.
I mean, there
You
are
don't
flat
have, look,
earthers.
just because you agree that a descriptor claim is true and accurate doesn't mean you agree with how people use it, right? Or all the things in history that are horrible. You don't have to jump on board. It's okay.
Right, flat earthism is dumb, but there are real
No,
flat earthers out there.
I'm not gonna go along with the idea
Right.
that this was racism. I'm gonna say it's just dumb people. They thought he looked like a monkey, so they put him in a monkey cage.
Why? Okay, what made them think that it was appropriate if they thought he was human?
Maybe they didn't think he was human. Maybe they thought he was subhuman.
Oh, okay. So they made
Oh.
an ontological, hierarchical claim about him based on his genetic traits.
Yeah, they didn't understand what biology and humans were. They were
Wait. Okay, no. Riddle me this. Why is it that when the black ministers came to the zoo and complained, they didn't throw the black ministers in the monkey cage too?
the black ministers came and complained because
Yes.
they had more power.
So racism is a power construct. Are you a liberal left? Are you a leftist?
I mean, you guys are the ones who sound like leftists. You talking about racism, defending. the
No, I'm
idea
talking
of
about
racism.
I'm talking about descriptors. But you just admitted that they put him in a cage because he looked like a monkey. Like, how is that not like holy shit, man? Like,
So it's species.
and then when I ask you, like, how can you tell if if someone's being racist or not, all you say is because race doesn't exist. That's reasserting the claim. It's incoherent. It makes no fucking sense.
Well, that's why I think there's a translation thing that needs to happen because if he disagrees with racism exists and you pitch him the word racism, he's just going to reply to that every time. Well, you have to actually break it down by its components and deliver it to him, like I was doing with the and we kind of got the answer.
Yeah, but they don't know his lineage.
I'm satisfied with that answer.
They see a person who looks like a monkey, they put him in a monkey cage. Because they didn't put him in a black person. Hold on, they didn't put him in a black person cage. They put him in a monkey cage. So it's speciesism because we put monkeys.
This is far better. This turned out far better than I thought.
Is it speciesism when we put monkeys in cages?
We're not making racism is entirely to do with humanity. Has nothing to do with animals.
Right. I know.
So when you attribute animalness to humans, that is racism because you're making an ontological claim that separates yourself from them.
I'm saying it's not speciesism that we keep monkeys in cages. They didn't put him in the black person cage. They put him in the monkey cage.
So
no. Actually, no. Hold on. You can go with this. No, humans put animals in cages because they view them as inferior.
Correct.
Okay, so they're speciesist.
So, hold on.
They still view them as inferior.
So hold up. That's my entire point of race doesn't exist, but racism exists. Because if racism exists, then they're speciesist, and they're misattributing species to a human. That's racism.
Yeah, when I see a pit bull, and I know that pit bulls maul 70% of the children, I cross to the other side of the street because I see a pit bull. Nobody calls me speciesist.
So the whole thing, we have demeanor. The American Kennel Club has demeanor breakdowns based on genetics, and you just made an essentialist claim and tried to map that onto humanity.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, so what I'm saying is you're saying that if you see a particular lineage of people, the lineage alone, not their behavior, but the lineage alone makes
you don't see their lineage. You don't know their lineage. You're just
then how do you
guessing.
tell when it's a pit bull?
No. Oh, so are we talking about lineage or phenotype?
You made an analogy, so I'm engaging you on the analogy level. You said crossing the side of the street. I'm assuming that stereotypically you're talking about crossing the side of the street when black people are on the same side of the street.
No, I was talking about a pit bull.
Right. So, so you cross the street when you see a pit bull because why?
Because I know pit bulls do most of the attacks on children and they'll randomly bite you.
And how do you identify it's a pit bull, JS?
By the way it looks.
And do you think that it's genetic, that demeanor?
But I don't actually know it's a pit bull. It could be a mix.
Then how do you know when to cross the street?
It looks like a dangerous dog, so I cross to the other side of the street.
How do you know what a dangerous dog looks like?
Like a pit bull?
But it doesn't mean that I'm speciesist. It's not speciesism.
We're talking about how you identify it right now.
Even if I said I hate pit bulls, I'm still not a speciesist.
Gentlemen, that's time. That's time.
I thought that was very productive.
I kind of feel like I almost laughed out of my chair on some of those comments. With that being said, I guess we're done with the 10-minute micro segments here. So I suppose you gentlemen could just dig into it. And
yeah, I actually have something for both parties here, and it's going to go in the order. I have two examples, but the first one has to do with race, right? The claim that race isn't. So here's a hypothetical to engage with, gentlemen. Let's say, okay, it's the future, and we decide that the doctors, they need a little help, so they built an AI, and this AI is completely race blind. It doesn't believe race exists. I treat everyone equally. Race does not exist, AI says. So that goes on for a little bit, and patients come in. They come in with severe bone pain, fatigue, swelling, shortness of breath. The AI runs a full scan, low hemoglobin, signs of anemia. The AI says, got it. This matches anemia patterns. I'm going to diagnose iron deficiency. Hands them a supplement, sends them on their way home. Problem is, patients keep coming back. and they come back worse. They come back worse, organ damage, severe chest pains. Some are even having strokes. AI scans again, same answer, anemia detected. Continue treatment. Eventually, all these patients start to die. AI reports, well, no bias detected. I treat them all equally. Patients were treated equally. What's the problem? What they never realized was all these patients had sickle cell. The symptoms overlap with other common things. The pattern tied to ancestry and race, which they screened for, is what would have caught this and saved their lives. So, in this example, gentlemen, I have a question. Should the medical community continue to screen based on race for sickle cell or not?
Well, hold on. What was the test what was the actual test? They gave him what, a cheek swab or what?
Blood test.
Blood test. So sickle cell anemia describes when red blood cells are at only half capacity for oxygen carriage, right?
Well, hold on. You have to specifically test for sickle cell. It doesn't show up on a regular scan.
Okay. So they're not using...
And you have to screen for it based on race.
You have to screen for it based on race. Well, so that assume...
Yes.
So, okay. So how do they screen for it based on race?
If you're black, 1 in 300 something people have... if you get the 2 traits together, then you get sickle cell. But if you only have the 1, then it's fine. But it's more commonly in the black ancestry.
Okay. So, but then, again... How do you determine, for example, is the rapper Logic black?
Hold on. Wait, we're getting away from the question.
Well, we
should
as
the
long as
medical
blackness,
community,
as long as blackness,
should the medical community still scan or still basically, treat or look at black people for sickle cell? Should they do that or not? Because that's what the medical community does.
I think doctors should do physicals on all people.
All people.
Well, that.
Actually, JS, great. Okay, tell you what, JS, I agree. I'm gonna go along with this. Yeah, we should scan everybody for everything. But in the future, when we have giant tubes where people can walk in and a giant little laser comes through and scans them perfectly and finds every possible fucking thing that could be wrong with them, I agree with you. But that's not how modern medical works. They base their what they treat for on patterns and most likely outcomes. That's how the current medical community operates. So in the future, when everything is this utopia, great, we can go down that. But JS, the question still remains: should they still scan for sickle cell in black community or not?
Yeah, I'm fine with observing.
So
patterns.
race exists. Great.
It doesn't follow.
Can I ask a clarifier though on this? Is it genetic markers that are sought for, or is it specifically color of skin?
It's someone comes in and they're black and they are then put into the category, okay, this person potentially needs to be looked at for sickle cell potentially.
Interesting.
That's my understanding.
So it would not show up in the genetics whether or not they would have sickle cell or not. Are you sure about that?
I didn't make that claim. I mean, potentially you could do a genetic scan, but that would still be like, okay, so you're going to genetically scan every human being. Once again, we go back to the utopia future where we have the medical diagnosis to do this, and it catches up, but we don't have that.
Okay. Are other quote unquote I'll just say lineages. Are other lineages capable of having sickle cell, or is it only people that look black on the outside?
It comes from the area with malaria, and it was a mutation in order to defend against malaria. But it is more commonly in the black community.
Okay,
and there's different parts of Africa that have this as well.
You mean like Northern Africa, where like Algeria and Libya?
So is the claim that race and ethnicity are the same thing then?
Well, no, not the same thing. No, I would say that ethnicity is a subcategory of race when we're talking about descriptors.
Well, also, if you're saying that it has an environmental cause, then that's not necessarily a genetic cause. It's just damage that's carried down throughout time.
I think you both would agree they should still continue to screen the black community for sickle cell, right?
Sure. Yeah, you're going to turn me into a race realist, Mo. I know I read the bell curve, and apparently black people have low IQs. So I guess I should just assume every black person is a dumbass.
Well, that's a bit extreme.
So I would say that phenotype
still
does
your
a job
ideas
for this.
lead.
And if
No, it doesn't.
if phenotype,
I'm talking about real medical community, the medical reality we live in, and a really real thing that is important when it comes to race by identifying medical treatments.
but as long as
Here's
phenotype
another
is
thing,
different than
too.
race, I can just use phenotype and get the exact same effect, if not better.
If you could use phenotype instead of race,
If I say phenotype instead of race, I'm actually more accurate.
phenotype would not account for the area from where they come from.
What do you mean?
For malaria, it matters like ancestry-wise where they come from.
Okay, but then wouldn't it still catch all of it if we use phenotype? Because it would test both the people who do and would do not have it. So you just do it across the
once
board
again,
for phenotype.
This is once again, you have to understand. My definition comes from for race is statistic clustering, right? Obviously, you're going to have exceptions. You're going to have people who are like in Europe or whatever, and they look completely sub-Saharan African or something, right? The exception does not prove the rule.
So the clustering you're talking
Just
about
prove the
doesn't have.
rule.
So the clustering you're talking about doesn't even have to be visible. So if you had like a malaria in Greece and half the people from Greece had sickle cell anemia as a result of that, then you would have two different races that are both Greek.
You would scan for both of them, but once again, it would be based on race. It would
So,
be okay.
but-
Now we have two categories. We have two races instead of one race to look at.
Okay, so then sickle cell anemia is enough to designate a race. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm saying that your claim earlier that race is unnecessary and doesn't do anything is proven false by the medical community.
No, what I'm saying is when I asked you a couple times whether race and phenotype were the same thing, you said phenotype was part of it, meaning that it was not doing all of it, meaning that there's more work to be done by other factors to determine what race
phenotype is when you go into phenotype, you have statistic clustering of geographical locations.
Okay, so that would include
the ethnicity. That's the ethnicity, and then you have the umbrella term of race.
Okay, so then if that's the ethnicity and the clustering describes a part of a certain geographic area, then the race doesn't actually do anything because my Greek analogy would totally work then, because all we're talking about with race then would be like a place where people look the same outwardly, and then some of the people who look the same outwardly have sickle cell, but not all of them do, because not all of them are going to be exposed to malaria in the same concentration.
And that would still be a true descriptive claim of race. So yeah.
So sickle cell would be enough to designate race, on its own, or no?
I'm using this for multiple reasons. Both of you say race don't exist, and your claim in your opening was that it's useless. But apparently, the medical community disagrees with you highly, especially when it comes to bone marrow transplant. By the way, and that is a really big problem. So when it comes to donor, whites have, I think it's upper 79%, 79% success to get a donor. Blacks are like, they only have I think it's like 29%.
I can believe
it actually is there's a lack of bone marrow for donations for transplants for blacks.
I can believe in genetic variance and not have to believe in race. I can believe that there is variety in the gene pool without having to believe in race. I can believe in phenotypes without having to believe in race.
What do you mean by race? What is your definition of race?
Yeah, so
it seems like I'm saying it's a descriptor claim, and I'm not attributing any hierarchy or anything like that. But this is very important things inside the medical community. Mm-hmm. So why is that? What is you have? I assume you're going to go to the more
metaphysics.
Every person is made in the image of God, so race doesn't exist. Is that kind of the claim?
Yeah.
Okay. So look, man, I can agree with that. I can even grant that. And I tell you what, Rex. When God willing, we both end up in heaven, and you're sitting there because you're going before me, and then I show up, and you're like, "Look, Mo, look around. Do you see race?" I will gladly concede. But while we're on the mortal plane, and while we're in a fallen state, the descriptive claim is true. You might not like it, but it's true.
But the problem is, if you said race was phenotype, it'd be a much harder argument to make. But you claimed multiple times now that phenotype is not race. A phenotype is actually observable, but now we're talking about race in terms of invisible inheritable traits that may or may not correspond.
No.
To your phenotype.
Saying, let me be clear. Let me be clear. So when I talk about phenotype, that isn't in my description of race, but it's important that it's the key thing here, typically linked to ancestry and historically geographic clustering.
Okay.
So just because you have, let's say, okay, this guy is black, right? You can look at his lineage and where it comes from, and it would be geographically clustered in a certain area. That's all the script claim is.
Can I jump in here and ask a question though? Because there was a comment made early on about from JS, I believe, where he said, what if he has one parent that's black? And that would make him 50-50. But if he appears as white, he may still have the same elevated rates of sickle cell and be passed over because the claim is he's white, regardless of whether or not he has parentage that is not.
Right. But, okay, yeah, even in that case, you're still looking at a medical situation to consider based on race. Just because he's half black and half white.
But if it's not visible,
my race.
How do you screen for it if it's not visible?
Well, does the exception disprove the rule?
We're talking about lineage, right? And we're talking about what's invisible. We're not. You said you screen for race. So if a guy looks white,
look,
like
this goes back to. I will admit that when it comes to race and even ethnicity, it can be fuzzy lines. And I have another example that we can discuss, but it is fuzzy. But just because it's fuzzy doesn't mean that it's not categorically true. Once again, the grain of sand and a beach analogy.
Right, which was why I think that phenotype is much more useful because it actually describes something that can be objectively observed. Whereas,
not necessarily, right? Because here, I'll give you an example, right? If you have, I'll just make up something, right? Let's say you have a certain ethnicity that is part of like the black race, and they have like a certain facial structure, right? That's different from other facial structures. Like there maybe whatever, right? They have like flatter noses or something like that, right? I don't know. And then you have another guy in the US and he has an accent and gets slapped in the face and he had a really long nose before. That doesn't prove anything.
Yeah, okay. So we consider them both equally black, right?
Say that again?
You would consider them both equally black, right?
No, because he doesn't link his ancestry to geographical clustering of the area that would be considered under the umbrella of black.
Wait. So, but he has just as dark skin, right? And he has many of the general same features.
No. I'm saying that feature-wise, phenotype, right? Be like he got slapped in the face, and his phenotype looks different now. That doesn't prove his ancestry.
Well, phenotype is not physiognomy. Phenotype is talking about like white, Asian, Latino.
I know. Phenotype is I get that, but it's still perception. You're perceiving it.
Okay, so isn't medical history a perception as well? Because if I want to say that somebody has a concentration of fat around their eyes,
medical history will be based on your ancestry.
Wouldn't phenotype be based on your ancestry?
To a large degree, yes, it would.
What's the degree that it wouldn't?
Well, I'm not, once again, the grain of sand beach. I can't give you
no. I mean, like
moment. It's fuzzy.
But phenotype is 100% genetic. Wouldn't you agree, though?
Yeah.
Okay, so then to what degree were you saying it wasn't?
So the guy getting slapped in the face with a 2x4, and he has a perceived change in his physiology, but it doesn't have anything to do with his ancestry.
But that goes back to JS's Michael Jackson example. It's not talking about phenotype at that point anymore.
You're proving my point here that it's based on ancestry.
Why do we have
geographic clustering?
Because of genetic drift.
Why do we have different
geographic distance? Sharing.
Genetics, yeah.
So you would say
environmental.
It's adaptation. It's we have people like people have squinty eyes if they live in the snow to stop the light blindness from the snow that bounces off their eyes. There were tribes that had curled feet because they would climb trees to get their food. Dark skin color is going to mean that you live near the equator and there's a lot of sunlight. Over time, you could take 5 black couples and you can move them to Antarctica, or you could take 5 white couples and you can move them to Nigeria, and they could have kids within their own family group. Within 10 generations, those kids are going to be a different color. They're going to have different phenotypes. Their kids over generations. I don't know how many generations it takes, but if you had pale white people,
you're proving my point.
And you move them, no, Well, the point is they're still the same. They're still the same lineage, but they have different phenotypes because of where they live. So the geographic clustering. That's why I'm saying that's arbitrary.
But
you're just picking a
but
random
you're saying
point in
no,
time
no,
to
no.
base
But
it
you're
off
saying
of.
in your example, you're saying they're intermingling, and over enough generations, they would look more like the native inhabitants, correct?
No, they're not intermingling. They're only mating within their group. So you take. That's why I say 5 white couples to avoid incest or something like that. You have 5 pale white couples, man and woman, man and woman, man and woman, and they go to Nigeria and they only breed within their group. Within 10 generations, those kids are going to be much darker than their great grandparents, but they came from the same lineage they came from the same geographic clustering. They came from the same lineage. They moved to a different area. Now they have different phenotypes. Now they're
because of
environmental
impacts, right? Like more sun, that sort of thing, right? Is that the idea?
What if? Yeah, my ancestors could be.
Okay.
I would say all of our ancestors were probably olive-colored skin tone from the Mediterranean region.
But that
the Fertile
that
Crescent,
is
Mesopotamia.
The example you just gave. That's why in my description is statistically clustering, right? You're giving 5 people. That doesn't account for the entire race or the entire ethnicity of that group.
It does after dozens and dozens and dozens of generations, right? 5 people, each have 5 kids. Those have 5. Those have 5. It takes very.
It takes a long time.
I don't even think it would. I think that those kids would. The next generation would be darker, and then the next generation would be darker, and then they would start to, based on access.
All you're
to
proving
food,
here is people can get a tan. If I stay on the sun long enough, I can get a tan.
Based on access to food, they're going to get skinnier. And then based off of socioeconomic conditions and education, they're going to get a little dumber.
Well, let me ask you this.
Pretty soon, you have a bunch of white kids that turned into a bunch of Nigerians.
Okay.
They have
real quick. Mo, let's say that no matter what, humans never change their phenotype. You always look average, about the same across the world, right? And then the same sickle cell anemia phenomenon is happening under the skin. Would you say there are different races at that point, or no?
Wait, in this hypothetical,
yes. Let's say
all races.
Let's say that
the exact same.
Well, what I'm saying is, let's say there's only one phenotype. There's only one physical general appearance. Like they're all Asian or they're all Latino or something like that. And that environmental factors don't change whatsoever worldwide.
We all look like JS, which is unfortunate.
Sure. Let's say we all look like JS around the world. There's a bunch of JS clones.
Okay.
And then you take the same malaria situation and cluster it at a certain part of wherever, and then you say it's unique to that situation that these JSs have sickle cell anemia. Would that still be race?
That would be ethnicity. But what you're describing here, so in that world, right? In that reality, there wouldn't be a race. Well, I guess you could say there would be one race. It would just be all white, right? But they would still have to screen for it based on ethnicity and geographical clustering, where they come from.
Okay, how would they screen for it for ethnicity if they all look like JS?
Sorry, I meant geographical location. Sorry.
So geographical location is race?
Because that's where the malaria would be.
So
you're asking me a very specific question. In this hypothetical, we all look like JS. We're all white. Malaria still exists, I'm assuming, right? So,
yes. For it. Yeah. Let's just say it's clustered in the same area.
The medical community would have to say, okay, then it would be, much harder, because then they would have to say, okay, where are you from? Basically, they'd have to find, where does your ancestry come from? Where geographical location do you trace your ancestry from? It would be a much harder thing to screen for.
Mesopotamia.
But you could do that. But you could do that in general, right?
In general, how?
Like, just ask every patient the same thing.
I mean, don't we collect the information?
Well, that would, you're basically replacing the box of black, white, or Hispanic with where I'm from.
Because in this scenario, that's the only consequential thing for health.
we can call race Zuckbark. You know, it doesn't change the reality of what it is.
Hold on, gentlemen. If we're being fair, if you go into a doctor's office of any kind and you're actually being seen, you're going to have medical history of family members. You're going to have all of that also put into the system. Regardless of your race, you're going to fill out, health risks from your family members on your parent, is there heart disease in your family? Is there this? Is there this? So that's already going to be in the paperwork when you're being seen. I'm just throw that out there for you, because if you've been to the hospital a few times, you'll realize that you have to fill out that paperwork every single time, regardless of who you are, to be seen. So
Right. I'm just trying to isolate the idea that if health is consequential based on a certain area from where you are, regardless of what you look like, well, let's maximize the regardless of what you look like, and then see if the same model holds as necessary that race exists. It seems like
I engage in that, Rex, but I don't really know if that's really analogous, right? Because you're having to change once again, you're just checking a different box. I could go down. I could even grant it and say, yeah, you're just checking a different box to screen for this thing from this certain area. But the current reality is, in the medical field, they screen based on race, because one race has a higher percentage of it than others.
I agree that they have that on a piece of paper that you can check a box for, and that people might operate off of that sort of idea. But what I'm saying
they
is,
have to, or people die.
What I'm saying is that in the same scenario of the same considerations, if you just took that off, then you would use another method. Like if you're saying that that's shorthand for geography, well, then it's like, well, if you can't use geography and you would still have the same effect, you would just have it without any phenotypic differences, any appearance differences.
Yeah, you can play with the different variables of how this would look in a different hypothetical, but at the end of the day, currently in modern medicine, this is how they screen for this if you're black.
So race wouldn't exist, or race would not exist where the phenotypes were different, but the genetics. Sorry, where the phenotypes were the same, but genetics were different.
Say that one more time.
Race would not exist where the phenotype is all the same, but the genetics are all different. Let's say the genetics are all hidden; they don't manifest in your phenotype whatsoever. Would race still exist?
But there's still phenotypes, right?
It's one phenotype all over the world, but different genetics under the skin.
Okay, we're going. Okay.
Would race exist? Would race exist if there were huge medical differences?
Well, no. If we all looked like JS, once again, my definition of race is an umbrella term, right? And it encapsulates a bunch of different ethnicities based on geographical clustering. So, in your hypothetical, if everyone looked like JS, well, then no, you wouldn't have a thing called race.
Okay, so the underlying it's
an umbrella term.
Okay, so the underlying medical thing is just circumstantial to where you live. It's not dependent upon how you look.
Wait, say that one more time.
The underlying medical thing is not substantial to where you live or where you were born. It's just substantial to how you look. Or sorry, yeah, it's not.
Well, no, it is substantial. It is substantial to where you're from and where you're born, because malaria and that is in certain areas. So,
but you could be in the same general area, not be within the genetic cluster, and still be of the same race, right? Like if you were across the continent from where malaria was heavy, but you looked the same because you had genetics that were adjacent, so you were generally considered socially black, you would still be the same race in your paradigm, even though you wouldn't have that same malaria deviation from generations past.
Yeah, it would be where you, where your ancestors, once again, where your ancestors comes from, for malaria, that's the thing you have to test for in your hypothetical where everyone looks the same.
Right. Which is why I brought that up, because if everybody looked like JS, then it would
be a dark world. It'd be so sad. I don't know. I would just
be a pretty bright world if you're talking about photons bouncing off people's faces. But if we're saying that
the ladies, what about the ladies? They're all going to look like me too.
The ladies are all going to look like you.
That's why I said it'd be horrifying.
Terrible world.
Horrifying. Just why even go on? Honestly,
I'm looking into sickle cell. It says it can affect anyone. It's most common in people with ancestors from Africa, the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and India.
Yeah.
So that's pretty
Yeah.
much everywhere except for what, Western countries? Could that have something to do with, I don't know, medicine and advancements that we've made over time? Why don't European, American, Australian people get
But
sickle
it's
cell
higher
anemia?
in the black community.
So can we, if we treat it, can we treat it out of somebody?
Can we treat it out? Well, it's a
No,
genetic
you're
mutation.
you're stuck
Like,
with
why
it.
you would have to engage in, like, very dark things to try to weed it out of the gene pool.
You'd have to
Very
give
experimental.
somebody
So unless you want to go down that route, and then you could say, yes, racism doesn't exist because I've cleared.
You just don't let two
We've gotten
carriers
rid of
have-
all of them.
you don't let two carriers have sex with each other.
But well, okay, so this becomes a broader question, I think, gentlemen, because if it is the case, like Mo was saying, that it's black communities that most prevalently show sickle cell, but we see more and more intermingling of different bloodlines from all the different areas of the world, there's going to come a time where there's not enough differentiation to tell that, and at which point, how would you differentiate then? You couldn't say because these people seem to have sickle cell, they must be of that persuasion. At that point, it could be anybody who could have sickle cell then, right?
Yeah,
You could have stark white folks having it. You could have Hispanic looking folks having it. Because if there's 1,000 generations of people making children, then they could have any appearance at that point.
I just don't see it as a winning strategy not to ask the questions about, that could rule out sickle cell anemia if you're having these sorts of things. I just don't. I mean, I understand statistically because the phenotype is used as a proxy for different kind of inherited traits, but everybody has inherited traits. And everybody has unique inherited traits too.
and regardless, so you're saying
Well,
when a doctor,
here's the other thing though. Like the probability of finding, I mentioned this earlier, the probability of finding a compatible bone marrow donor from a registry, for whites it's 79%, for blacks it's 29%.
In America,
so this is a very real thing in the medical community.
Yeah, but that's just
yes,
heritable
this is
traits.
America,
But that
yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean race because, like you said, phenotype's only a part of it, and it's more. Didn't you say it's more perception?
The point is the medical community depends on race to deal with these things.
Well,
So,
if a patient comes in and needs bone marrow and they're black and they just say, well, race doesn't exist, and they pull some bone marrow from a white patient, that's going to have dire fucking outcomes.
I could just say phenotype for all that.
That depends on the genes again.
and also, so you're saying racism, there's positive racism. Because when the doctor sees, most people would say like racism is discrimination.
No.
based off race.
Racism is a separate thing we haven't really got into. We're just talking about race right now, descriptor of
Right.
geographic clustering of ancestry and phenotypes.
But I'm saying if the doctor treats the black patient differently than the white patient, that's racism.
If it's based on how they look, then yes.
Like
that'd
if
be
a
racism.
doctor treats a man different than he treats a woman, that's sexism.
Well, it depends what you mean by different.
What do you mean by
because
different?
If it's an OBGYN,
How do you
then,
mean
yeah,
different?
we be treated
Beneficially.
differently.
What if
I'm
every
told to
black-
get out.
What if I give $1 to every black person I see? That's racist, right? Is that racist?
I mean,
if-
that's
if-
racist against all the other races. Sure.
if you are
yes.
saying if you have a motive
'Cause
structure,
I want $1.
if you have a motive structure to say that because of this line of reasoning, I'm going to give every black person $1, then if that is the only factor, you're making a judgment call based on their perceived lineage, then that would be racism. Yes.
Okay.
So this is before we like run out this, and this is interesting because this next example I'm going to use here really only is for JS. So I guess Rex can just join in if you want. I don't think it's going to match the. I don't know if it's going to match the hilariousness we got from the guy at the cage like a monkey. But I'll try. This is a historical event.
They put him in the
I
monkey
think it's worth
cage. They
mentioning.
didn't put him in the black
And
person cage.
I'm worried. I want to know what JS has to, what he thinks about this. So rewind the clock, right? I think it was in 94. Rwanda, JS. Okay. In Rwanda, people live side by side, same language, same neighborhoods, they intermarried. Then a system came in. This system came in before 1994. 1994 is when the thing that happens next happens, but this happened like long ago during the colonization. But a system came in and said, you are Hutu. And then it gave another description of other people, you are Tutsi. The Hutus, just for phenotype, Hutus were usually like shorter, stockier. Tutsis were a little long, lankier, taller people. Then they handed out ID cards, and so they locked people into categories and said that different races. Over time, these categories became something deeper, not just groups, but what they were at birth. Then propaganda started. They're not like you. They're the enemy. They're less than human. A lot of propaganda around that, even because it started to blame the Tutsis for all their problems. They even referred to them as cockroaches. One day, violence breaks out. This is the '94 incident. And now your neighbor, the guy you grew up with, isn't your neighbor anymore. He's something else, and people start getting killed. And for that, they labeled them, and in about 100 days, 800,000 people are dead. Same land, same people. The only difference, a category based on phenotypes and race description. Is that racism, JS?
No, I think it's a spiritual issue as a result of the fall. The same reason that when we are all at the Tower of Babel and we got divided into nations and languages, I see people, nations, tribes, languages, but we all come from the same origins. So
in this situation specifically, do you think they did it over race? Do you think that's why they did it?
No, I don't think it's racism. I think it's worldly hatred that is taught to us and instilled in us
based
from
on
birth.
what?
The problem is that's not a negation of racism to say that it was based on hatred. You need to negate racism.
Do we do closings? Because I want to kind of save something for a closing, but I'll say it now if we don't do closing.
Are you doing a Sakar? You have your best argument for your closing? Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm not going to make an argument. I'm just going to.
We can do closings after this.
Okay.
There's 28 minutes left on the clock.
All right.
Is it your contention, JS? I'm just going to throw this out there. Is it your contention then that because this is just hate, it's more like otherism?
Yeah, it's preferences. It's observations, pattern recognition, and preferences that we have. And it's my real contention is just the language that we're using.
This wasn't tribalism. This wasn't like tribalism in this case. This was immutable traits at birth that they used to categorize these people.
Well, it's like the Shiites and the Sufi Muslims. They come from the same region. They have the same origins, the same lineage.
Once again, how do you know this incident was not based on racism?
If racism is real, then that would qualify as racism.
Okay.
So if I'm looking at it from your perspective, then yeah, it is racism. But I'm saying it's not about your genes. It's not about your parents or where you come from. It's things that are taught to us that we learn. But
what is the referent they're using to do the teaching?
Hate.
No.
Hate for another person.
To point to something. Can you point and touch hate?
How come? Let's say
Can you point and touch hate? Can you point at hate? Is hate in the room with you right now? Can you point at it?
No.
Okay, so then they have to point at something. They have to use a referent of what they're claiming, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
and
what is that?
That's what you call racism.
That's what I call racism, but it seems like you're working awful hard not to say immutable characteristics of race.
It's not what they're not immutable characteristics if we can change them.
Tall and short. The Hutus were short, stocky. The Tutsis were tall.
Yeah, if I hate,
how am I going to change? How am I going to? I'm going to cut my legs off if I want to be shorter. What am I going to do? Take your time. Think about it.
If I hate fat people, nobody calls that weightism.
That's a mutable characteristic. There's no fat race. There's no fat race.
Yeah. Don't lie to yourself, JS. No matter what you tell yourself, there's no fat race. Okay,
Right. You
so,
can change being fat. Just like you could bleach
Yeah.
your skin and change your skin color, just like you could get nose surgery and change your nose, just like you could shave your head and wear a wig to change your hairstyle.
But that's like Lamarckism. Lamarckism was the idea that physical changes can change like your fundament, like what you pass on to your offspring. And the thing is, you can like, again, if you took a blood test of me, you could tell that I was male. And then if I went through some kind of trans madness, even if they tried their hardest, then it would not work. But if they tried their hardest to make me into a woman, you would still do the same blood test. I would still have XY chromosomes.
Okay. And so if you
I would
If
still,
you
in
did it-
fact, be male.
and there's ways to test your DNA to see what your phenotypes are or your genes.
I would say that I don't know. I don't know enough.
I'm asking.
I don't know enough to make that claim. I have faith that that's probably what it is. Like, but I don't know for certain. I don't know for certain if you can take somebody's spit or blood and tell what exactly their skin pigmentation is or what their nose or eye structure is.
Because I know a lot about ancestry and 23andMe and the origins of all that. I know it's very similar to it's just good record keeping. It's the same as when you take a core sample, you can send it to 6 different places. They're going to ask you, where did the core sample come from, to figure out the age of the sediment layers and the DNA and ancestry testing is very similar. They're going to ask you, who are your parents? Who are your grandparents? Where do you live? Where did they come from? And then they have records. They're stockpiling records in a vault in Utah. And then they do good record keeping to trace it back to figure out where you come from. But once you get to a certain point, they're just doing guesswork. You could send it to 23andMe and Ancestry and get 2 different results.
They also have genetic haplogroups and stuff where there's trace marks that show you which line and things like that. But that would be a really big deep dive to get into that. But
yeah,
but all the same, you asked about men and women and whether we could figure out whether or not, or like my example.
We can figure out if somebody's man or woman.
My example was, you're not changing your phenotype actually just because you change your physiology or physiognomy or anything like that. That's all superficial stuff. But that doesn't change.
Here's an example
the
of that,
genetics you got from
actually,
your
just real
parents.
quick. Like, yeah, JS, like, okay, so you get with a chick and she's completely changed her phenotype by all kind of like surgery and shit, right? And then they have a kid and that kid is butt ass ugly. That's the
wait, she changed her phenotype through surgery?
Wait, is she from the ugly
like
race? What are you talking about?
Her yeah, she's like super ugly, right? Or whatever. She has like characteristics and she changes it. When kid comes out, it's ugly. That's genetics.
Goes the other
Point
way,
is genetics, okay?
Rather than somebody going from black to white, it usually goes the other way. So, like,
if Michael Jackson had a kid while he looked like a white female, as you said, it would come out as like black baby. If
like
he had
Mariah Carey,
okay with that.
You see Mariah Carey nowadays, you might think she's black, but she didn't used to be black.
Mariah Carey?
Yeah, there's a lot of women
she'd be white. You think she'd be white? That's what you're saying, right?
No, if you saw Mariah Carey now, you might think she's black, but she's actually white.
Mo,
there's a lot of it's a popular thing now for women to like blackify themselves.
Wait. Mariah Carey? Hold on.
Oh yeah,
that's
my girl.
I thought your girl was Savannah Hernandez based on your last couple of videos.
That's my girl too.
You have a lot of girls.
Yeah, he has a lot of. Oh, Mariah Carey. Okay, I was thinking about somebody different. Never mind.
JS is not grounded.
But if Nick and Mariah Carey, if you see Nick Cannon and Mariah Carey standing next to you, you probably think that's a black couple. But then they have a kid. Now it's gonna be a half white, half black kid, and it's gonna come out looking, I don't know, in the middle.
Mo, if you were a doctor, at what percentage? Let's say you got a guy who's like 75% white, quarter black Garrett, and then would you test him for sickle cell, or would you wait until his lineage became more white to stop testing him? Or would you,
I have no
would you have
idea.
the one
I can't
drop
answer.
rule?
No, I'm not a doctor. I don't know the percentage and how they do it. I just know that they screen based on race. So I don't know the percentage, right? I don't know like how that they deal with that. Now, like if okay, I don't know for certain, but if I'm going to pretend for a moment, right? Okay, I'm a doctor and I know they're 20 the quarter black Garrett and he's like got the symptoms of, sickle cell, then yeah, I'll test him for it.
But
Like, even if it's one symptom.
Even if it's one symptom, you would test them for it based on
Wait.
his genetic.
But that's me. But I don't know, right?
Are they
I don't
doing
know.
that based on appearance or based on self-report?
Well, we already said that when they come in and they like fill out their chart, they self-report as like black, white, or whatever, right? But here's the thing: if you're a good doctor and you are in there and you have a guy, let's say he's black, and he checked the white box and he's having sickle cell symptoms, you'd be a piece of shit not to screen for it. I mean, would you agree? Like, it would be like, this guy's fucking delusional.
Yes, but that's also an obvious incongruence in the way that they've answered on the thing, right?
Right.
But what
Yeah.
would be more likely is somebody marked black, but they look white. In which case, you'd have to make a judgment call and go, they look white, but they could have black in their
Well,
bloodline.
no, I think in that case, if they check black and they look white, and then they come in and it's like, okay, well, you're just paying me extra to screen you. Like, okay, here you go, let's screen them. Good to be safe. Like, that's on them.
Same thing with bone marrow. If you have like Logic, who is half black, half white, then which bone marrow do you give them? Black?
I'm not like, I'll be honest. I only know that the availability of the bone marrow is a discrepancy between white and black, and you have to get the right. You have to be careful, who you give which one to. I'm not familiar with how they handle like this, the ins and outs of bone marrow. I'll admit that right now.
These poor orphans are never
But
going to know what race they are.
Oh, if they listen to you, yeah, they won't.
The kids who get abandoned by their parents at birth, and then they grow up in an orphanage, they got found in a dumpster. They're never going to know what race they are. They're not going to know their lineage and their geographic clustering.
They grow up, and if they look white, they'll say they're white. They look black when they go to the doctor. They'll check the black box. Like, I don't see how this is complicated.
Yeah, it's funny how race, we just call it a color, and that's what it is. You're white.
Look.
I said, what's my race? You said I'm white.
This is reality, and this is the descriptors we use. Do I think, if I could make it different somehow? That doesn't mean I like it or I think it's great. I'm not claiming that. I'm not saying it's morally correct. I'm just saying this is descriptors and reality we live in. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't the Portuguese considered Latino? Even though they're genetically like right up in there, up in Spain. And
well, and
then the mixture, and then you go to Mexico. It's a mixture of Spanish heritage, Portuguese heritage. You're Latino if you're Brazil, even if you're part native, part Portuguese.
Yeah.
You're Latino if you are Mexican. You're part Spanish, part Mayan, but you're not Latino if you're straight up Portuguese.
Well, that's what's funny is like about this is like just looking at the culture, right? There's like once again under the umbrella term of white, there's a bunch of different like sub ethnicities that are arguing whether they're part of that umbrella or not, right? So that it's like this ongoing thing,
right? That's what I'm saying.
Well,
so when the Jays and the Irish and the Italians were considered not white, were they right or were they wrong?
Well, that would be a moral value judgment claim, and that's not what I'm making.
Really?
Descriptor claims.
So so
what you said, whether right or wrong, that would imply moral value judgment.
So what about descriptor claim? If they said they're not white, would that also apply to it being a descriptor claim?
Give me the scenario again.
No Jays, no Irish, no Italians. They're not white.
They're not white.
Are they right or wrong as a descriptor claim alone?
Under the right a descriptor claim alone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the time they were. Well, let me think about it a second. I guess in that time in period in history, they were making that claim, and that was their descriptive claim at the time that I guess the collective believed in, right? So, and that's what they kind of enforced. I guess I don't even know. At that time, did the Irish consider themselves white? That'd be an interesting question.
I don't know what they considered themselves, but they came to America expecting not to be seen with no Irish need apply signs, and you know what happened is they got no Irish need apply signs. So whether or not they were perceived, I'm asking you.
Italian.
I'm asking you, is it descriptively?
But that would be race. That would be race. Yeah, descriptively, that would be racism.
It's not nationality.
Were they descriptively correct, though? Was what I'm saying for the Jays, for the Irish, for the Italians? Was it descriptively correct that they weren't white?
According to what I think, no. I think
now we're talking about nationality.
Well,
but I'm not. Once again, I'm not like claiming some moral ought here or anything. I'm just saying
I know you're not.
Claims.
But I know you're not.
Okay.
So why
so they were wrong
that we are interposing race and ethnicity? Because it seems that, like, especially with what the claim you've made about sickle cell, yes, it is the case that it shows prevalently in the Black community, but generally it's only African Black communities, because there is enough genetic diversity between traditionally African Black folks and those who may have lived in other places for many generations.
Well, it depends on the region, right? Because malaria is not in all the parts of Africa. There's different parts of Africa that has it more prevalent than others.
What does Hispanic mean?
But here, but I want to.
Well, because some people say Hispanic. Some people say.
Ask Emmett what, and when you ask him, say what is Latinx. Definitely make sure you use that specifically.
Latinx.
Hey, you had a point.
Some people say Hispanic means people of Latin American descent, but the word Hispanic means people of or relating to Spain.
Yeah, so Latino is a combo. Latino is a combo of native, Central and South American, and Hispanic or Portuguese if you're Brazilian. That's Latino somehow, but it's not Hispanic to be Portuguese, even though they are genetically.
But we just call them all brown.
Well, actually, Spanish used to be white in like the 1600s and on back, but they like. Do you consider the Spaniards to be white, Mo?
You're looking at one.
Are you white?
You're Hispanic. Your race is Hispanic.
I consider myself white. No, I'm Spaniard. Like I have like I forget the percentage, but it's like it's Irish, a little bit of Spaniard, and Scandinavian. So.
Okay, so but generally, would you consider the Spanish people to be white?
Conquistador, conquistador shit. Go and take care of the Aztecs.
Would you consider the Spaniards overall to be white people?
I guess I would consider them in the umbrella term of probably white. I guess I would consider them that.
Even though they're typically darker and definitely distinct from, say, the Nordic, Germanic, the English.
because once again, and that's why it's statistical clustering and geographical is important in my definition, because just because someone has, like, if you JS example, a group goes somewhere and they get a tan, right? That doesn't change their
your phenotypes could be black, genetics. Brown, or white. You could be from Latin America or Spain, and you would always be Hispanic. Hispanic is a race. So let me read you something I wrote.
I thought race doesn't exist, JS.
According to let me read you something I wrote. The U.S. Office of Personnel Management's Guide to Personnel Data Standards on Ethnicity and Race Identification has the following options for how you identify as your race: Hispanic or Latino, American Indian or Alaskan Native, Asian, Black or African American, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander,
I was gonna bring that up.
And white. So Asian, you could be a white Russian, but you're actually Asian. You could be a Black Latin American person, but your race would be Hispanic. Or would your race be Black? Which would it be? This is why it's arbitrary and inconsistent. And it's
do you think when they type Asian, they're thinking Russian? JS? Do you think that's what they think when they check that box? Do you think they're thinking that they're Russian?
Well, what they're thinking is a construct.
I don't know what they're thinking, and I don't know what they're going to answer. And they
You
could
don't know
answer
they're thinking
differently.
really.
The majority of the
serious?
time,
You
race is
don't know what they're
self-identified.
thinking, JS.
Hold on.
You don't think that?
Hold on. We'll take that one step further. What about India? India is Asia, and most people don't automatically think Asian when they think Indian.
And they don't say Indian's a
So-
race
Right.
because there's Bangladeshi, there's Sri Lankan. We don't have a name for the people who live in the at least not that I've heard, at least not on any medical records I've ever seen
Southeast
of
Asia.
the South. Right. Well, the Southeast Asia
No.
would be China. Southern Asia would be the subcontinent. But we
So
don't
that
have
form-
subcontinental on that form
That form states that white includes Middle Eastern or North African descent.
because they're Caucasian.
So an Iraqi Muslim or an Egyptian would be white.
I don't know why the Spanish wouldn't be North African because they were part of that major Islamic conquest that came through North Africa. So, and that was for hundreds of years that Cordoba was taken over and places like that in Spain where they were part of the conquest. So I don't know how they're white after all that. Like, especially, I don't know, again, just based on how many wars have happened in Europe, based on lineage, obviously. When we say that's an umbrella term, it's like, whose umbrella term are we using? Whose perception of what the umbrella is the actual standard, or is it or does it change from person to person?
Once again, just because these things are fuzzy does not mean they have it's categories that are real and we use, right?
So
Again,
European doesn't
I
necessarily
agree
mean
with
white.
you. It's fuzzy.
But that is my point: is that it's not just fuzzy; it's arbitrary, it's self-identified, or
Oh,
it's
no, it's not
identified by
arbitrary.
other people.
I would
Like-
say sickle cell is not arbitrary.
If
I
I,
think
have a
there's-
black
but
dad and a
sickle
white
cell
mom,
is not
and
blackness.
I identify as black, but you identify
No, but
me
the
as white.
entailment of
very
it being arbitrary means that they wouldn't check for that, and then that doesn't mean anything.
But sickle cell isn't blackness, you would agree, right? Sickle cell is not a consequence of having black skin, nor is not being black a preventative for having sickle cell.
Sickle cell is a consequence of ancestry from a certain geographical location.
Not always, though, right? It's possible to take malaria and introduce it to a place so as to have the effect elsewhere.
Well, hypothetically, yeah, but that's not the reality we live in.
I agree that the circumstances are different, but it would not necessitate purely from genetics. It would be genetics would be affected by something. So, for example, if I live near Chernobyl and all of my kids have flippers, that wouldn't be a race,
Or they look like JS, then you're like, wow, something's going wrong, horribly wrong here.
I live at Chernobyl. They all look like JS with flippers. But you
They
know
all
what I'm
look
getting.
JS,
But you know what I'm
even the
getting at.
girls.
But you know what I'm
Fully
getting at.
beard.
Start me on Chernobyl. That's a debate for another day. There's dogs living there, and they're doing just fine.
So
They're cooking breakfast. Yeah.
Next on JS, radiation doesn't exist.
Mo,
But radiationism does.
doesn't believe it. He
Not
doesn't
that
believe in
serious.
nukes. So Mo, you're saying that part of the issue is they're claiming that there isn't a defined set because it's fuzzy between the two. But what if that fuzz is massive? Like you used the analogy of a grain of sand versus a beach. Well, there's a grain of sand, and then there's a litter box, and then there's a sand box, and then there's a whole beach, and so there's all these variants in between. So
Right.
yes, it could be fuzzy, but that fuzz could be a multitude of things that have labels, and that fuzz actually is distinctive. So
Yeah.
it's not just two categories; it's now 20 or
Yeah,
40 or
And
80 or
this might help.
1,000.
This might help too. There's two elements.
Right, but at the end of the day, you still have the category of black and white.
Well, here's the
That's the
difference.
point of the fallacy.
Here's the difference, though. With the beach, you have a large amount of sand plus a body of water, right? Those are the two necessary elements to the beach, and But your analogy is a question of when in quantity, as opposed to a category within a spectrum. And the problem is we don't know what's drawing the lines of the categories within that spectrum. But we know what makes the beach, even though we don't know have a number. That's a question
clustering.
of when.
In regard to race, it would be statistically clustering.
Who decides which clusters
Based on geographical location.
Who decides which statistical clusters are significant enough to define a race?
It would, once again, statistical clustering based on geographical location.
Who decides that the statistical clustering is significant enough to designate when a race has been achieved or whatever, or designated?
Well, the same. Well, you in the example of Somalis, you knew in your head exactly what they would more likely look like based on statistical probability.
And I could just say phenotype for that if I wanted to. That has, and like you said, phenotype is only part of race, but isn't the same
when
as
I
race.
asked you the question, you knew exactly in your mind exactly what they probably looked like.
Yeah, because I'm honest about that. So, but that doesn't mean race
Okay.
exists.
Yeah, you're
Yes, it
actually
does.
the one making the continuum fallacy because you're saying that
No, I'm
you
not.
know. You're saying that you
No.
know when the grains of
JS,
sand.
go read what the continuum
I
fallacy
know what it
is.
is.
Holy
I know
shit.
what it is. You're saying that you know when the grains of sand became the pile of sand. I'm saying we don't know.
I'm not
So we have to
saying
go to
that.
the
No,
origin, to go to the beginning,
When did I ever
to know
claim to know? You're the one asking
because
when
if
does
I
it
ask
exactly
you-
happen, and I'm saying that's a fallacy.
No.
And you engage in it all the
No, I'm
time.
not.
You don't even realize it. And you proving this
That's
right
not what
now
I'm
by
saying.
giving it back to me
Oh my
in the wrong
God.
format. You don't even know what the fuck you're talking about.
No, you're so smug and you just want to say something's a fallacy. You're making an appeal to consensus fallacy because you're saying just because
How?
everybody agrees at this time period you came from Africa, therefore you're black. I'm saying no, we need to go back to the beginning. We need to go back to the rock that broke down into the sand and became the pile of sand. That rock is the same rock.
Right. And my typical expectation of what a person's going to look like in a given area does not prove that race exists. It just proves that statistics exist, which is not the same as race. Because statistically, you can look at crime and say, well, this particular group finds a descriptor of what the most crime in a given crime unit or whatever. But that doesn't tell me what race is or that race exists.
It's not a consensus fallacy. What I'm doing is I'm pointing out to like a distribution I can't talk tonight, it's getting late. Distribution, thank you, of a population, not a belief about like a claim. I'm at the end of my wine bottle or wine cup here, so.
But even then, that still comes down to
it's descriptive.
Yeah.
Who describes
perception?
Objective.
Who determines which descriptive features are significant enough to designate when a race is?
Well, yeah,
and isn't?
all of this would be perceptive based on history and how people perceive others. Of course, you're going to perceive them a certain way based on their phenotype, and it's like, oh, where do you come from? Oh, you come from this land. And then they start drawing the borders and mapping it out and saying, okay, this is where you're from. Hey, the people from this area tend to look like this.
Right, but that's just circumstantial based on genetics of parents. That doesn't mean that there's such a thing as race that phenotype doesn't already cover.
It's not necessarily parents, because you could have one parent somewhere, have a parent with someone else. I'm saying statistically clustering from a geographical location based on ancestry.
Explain that without the parents thing, because I don't understand what you're getting at.
You say it's on. I'm saying you say it's on parents or something, right? Like that's you could have a parent that he's from one area, and then another parent's from a way across the world from somewhere else. They're going to have a very different genetic makeup. Of their kids are going to have a very different genetic makeup, but they're going to have genetic makeups from the two different areas.
What's the Appalachian fallacy?
I don't know.
I have no idea, actually.
My chat's making fun of Mo because they're just throwing out all
if
these
you're from
random fallacies.
Appalachia, you're a fallacy.
Oh,
The fallacy.
I've only appealed to one fallacy, which is the very what JS does constantly, and he does it all the time.
You're not using the genetic fallacy, though?
I'm not using the genetic fallacy. I'm not using whatever fallacy. I don't know. Like, no, I'm not appealing to any other fallacies other than the one that JS is doing.
Mm-hmm.
I would say,
fallacy.
I don't know what might be a fallacy, but apparently, according to JS, he can peer in. He has access to other people's minds to know if they're actually racist or not, which is a freaking that's a crazy bold claim.
Well, he doesn't believe racism exists, so he couldn't claim to have that, though.
Yeah, I know. He's begging the question again.
No,
Fallacy.
He's saying that racism doesn't exist. I'm not begging the question. That wasn't a question. It was a statement.
Well, here's the thing. What Mo is getting at, JS, is that in order to make your claim that racism doesn't exist, you would have to know what everybody's thinking at all times in order to establish that claim. So that's what he's getting at.
You think begging the question means you asked a question?
No.
Begging the question is assuming the conclusion in your premises.
Assuming a conclusion
Right.
and the premise.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you say I know people are racist, I'm saying what is racism? I don't even believe in
Here's how
racism.
you know. You see what they do and you hear what they say and you hear their reasonings for it. So when people say if the Yahtzees say the Jays are rats and they compare them to an infestation, they are making a racist statement because they are tying their perceived lineage to an ontological, hierarchical, or moral difference based on that.
There's a moral difference in somebody based off of
Their perceived lineage. That's what
Right.
racism is.
That's what people called it.
Okay.
I need at least one for the night.
Well,
With that, there's like 12 seconds left. So if we wanted to, we could go into some closes if you gentlemen want to, and then we can.
yeah, I think
people come up
we've
and
established that
interrogate
JS
you.
is wrong, and Rex is only half wrong. But maybe he's coming onto my side. I don't know.
Oh my. All right. So with that, I'm gonna let you guys do your closing. So we started with JS. Should we do it in the reverse order or let JS have the last word? And
Well, he has like some super cool like
Yeah.
killer point apparently.
I know.
So
The
maybe we
finishing
should
move.
yeah, exactly.
let him.
Mhm.
He can have the last. I don't care.
Okay.
Doesn't
So
matter to
we'll
me.
start with Mo and end with JS on closings. And you want to stick to the same 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Yes, that's fine. Okay. Well, so chat. Notice what my opponents had to do this entire debate. They had to. They didn't show that race or racism doesn't exist. They just hid behind vague definitions and tried to blur the obvious reality. But reality doesn't disappear because it's messy or fuzzy. We walk through a simple example: a race-blind medical system with AI ignores ancestry patterns, treats everyone equally. People suffer for it, not because the data isn't there, but because you choose to ignore the pattern. We looked at Rwanda, people living side by side, same language, same communities, until they were divided into fixed identities and targeted for what they were, not what they did. So don't tell me race and racism don't exist. One example shows what happens when you pretend race isn't real. The other shows what happens when people act on it. So let's simplify this. If you ignore race, if ignoring race leads to real-world harm, it's real. If acting on perceived race leads to real-world violence, that's racism. So, chat, I'll leave you and them with this. Are you denying the outcomes, or are you just refusing to name what causes them? Because, gentlemen, either way, you're not arguing with me. You're really just arguing with reality. That's my time.
Short and to the point. All right. So I'll reset this. And when you are ready, Rex, you can go.
Great. I'd like to thank Abe Dinkus once again for moderating and hosting this debate. I'd like to thank JS and Mo Rebuttal for participating in this debate. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed myself. I think that it is pretty clear that there were laid out motivations behind racism, and they're attributed to ontological, hierarchical, and moral claims that are based on perceived lineage. Right. And as far as what race is, it seemed like everything that race could be chalked up to was either invisible, and that was the tying factor of things that could not be seen, and that the visible part seemed to be only something that you could figure out through a DNA test, or you could figure it out through the questionnaires that were already there. There's enough in the medical system to show what a person could be suffering from, and we wouldn't have to do race. You could, again, I didn't really hear anything that phenotype didn't cover, because when you're saying, well, it's a clustered area, well, not every phenotype is to a clustered area, but every phenotype has different variations. So if you go to Africa, and there are places where people look different and don't have sickle cell lineage, and places where where they don't look the same and they do have sickle cell lineage, well, then are they the same race because of sickle cell only? Or are they the same race because of their phenotype? I didn't really feel like I got a satisfactory answer on that. It seemed like, yes, things are vague, but race. I didn't really see where I got that. But it's not that Mo couldn't give me a better answer, or he won't give a better answer in the future. I think it's just kind of the nature of the beast, because we're just kind of jumping in. And but otherwise, I really enjoyed tonight's debate, and I look forward to more Fourscore Foursquares in the future.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. And I suppose, JS, that makes it your turn. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. If you guys couldn't tell, I don't really take this debate that seriously. I just say stuff to trigger people sometimes, and I think I proved that people get triggered, and then they want to say, "Why he said race and racism doesn't exist." This isn't a debate about who's right or who's wrong. If I take re-examination's definition of what racism is, then I concede racism is real. That's what racism is. That's real. If I take Mo's definition of what race is, some arbitrary, subjective, inconsistent nonsense that he just picks a random time and says that's where our lineage and our geographic location is, then yeah, race is real. Sure. I'll give it to you guys. You guys won. You got it. To me, this debate isn't about does race or does racism exist. This is a debate about words and how we use words to control people and how we move the needle. If you look into the definition of, or if you look into the origins of racism, Google's going to tell you that it was started by 15th century Christians. The 1500s. Christians in the 1500s started racism. If you look into who's the most racist group, it's going to be the evil Christian white man. So if you want to keep giving power to Marxists and leftists who want to control people with words, keep talking like them, keep using their words, keep giving them that power. I don't believe in giving them that power. The way I'm going to shut it down is say, that's stupid. It doesn't exist. I'm not going to use your definitions. I'm not going to agree with any of it. But if I internally critique it and I say, okay, this is what re-exam says racism is, sure, that's racism. That exists. If Mo says this is what race is, sure, that's race. It exists. I'll give it to you. But you're talking and sounding like liberals and Marxists and leftists who hate Christian white men, and you're giving them power. I'm not going to give them that power. I'm going to shut it down at the root. It's simply hate. We're in a spiritual battle, not a physical battle. It's not about the flesh. We have the same ancestry. We have the same lineage. We come from the same geographic region. I don't look at people like that. But if you guys want to keep giving the people who do power, you go right on ahead and do it. That's all I got.
Joke's on you guys. I was just pretending to be retarded. It was a troll the whole time.
Awesome. Thank you, JS, for that. I'm gonna throw this out there. Something that sticks in my head is a quote by Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman.
And they asked him, how do we solve racism? And Morgan Freeman said, stop bringing it up.
Race.
Stop talking about it.
Yeah.
The more we talk about it, the more we push it into the limelight all the time,
then it doesn't
people
exist.
fall into it.
It exists in the mind.
So wait a minute, Jess. Then why don't you make that your position? If this whole thing was just like, I don't want to indulge in snake language, then why is that not your position? Then say this doesn't exist.
Maybe. Well, I mean,
No,
I've done this debate formally. I've done this debate formally multiple times. You can go on my channel. You can watch the debates. I always say this. I always say, I don't care. It's about words.
But that's not the main premise of your structure. You're literally saying racist doesn't exist. That's all I'm saying. Oh, by the way, sorry, I'm a bad debater. I'm honest. Sorry, Abe. Abe, sorry. Thank you for hosting. I didn't say that in my closing. Thank you for hosting. This has been great. Thank you to everybody who came. Really enjoyed it. This went far better than I imagined. So thanks everybody for showing up. This is great.
All right, you
reasonably productive.
Are you gents all staying for after panel?
As long as I can.
I
got third.
As long as I can take a piss first.
Yeah. Okay. I'll stay for a bit. I'm coming close to my limits on my free streaming on StreamYard, so until it unplugs me, I'll be with you.
Fair. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna
JS?
take a break real quick. To
I got like 40 minutes.
Okay. And Mo, you got to pee.
Yeah, I gotta piss real quick.
And I also got
Okay. All right. I'm
I
gonna
might as
play
well, too.
I'm gonna play a video and song. You guys
Might
go
as
take
well.
your break. I'll throw out the link and I'll play the video and we'll reconvene when it's over.
Awesome.
All right. We will be right back after this.
Boots in the dust, have him low, eyes up. Said stay small, he just laughed from his gut. Late night screen glow, rum on the desk. Pin like a pistol, heart pounding in his chest. It's time for Abe to rise to new heights. Stack that fuel, let him sharpen his mind. Pay Abe so he can grow. Take flight, load him up, watch him walk through the fire. It's time. It's time. It's time for Abe to rise to new heights. Frontline words and a cultural fight. Pay Abe so he can grow. Take flight, back this man, let him claim what's right. They throw stones, he builds homes from the shards. Laughs at the slurs, turns scars into art. Wide brim shadow on a rusted old truck. He's talking truth, they're praying he shuts up. It's time for Abe to rise to new heights. Stack that fuel, let him sharpen his mind. Pay Abe so he can grow. Take flight, load him up, watch him walk through the fire. It's time. It's time. It's time for Abe to rise to new heights. Frontline words in a cultural fight. Pay Abe so he can grow. Take flight, back this man, let him claim what's right. Pass that plate, this ain't charity, it's war. Pass that plate, every dollar is a door. Open roads where his voice runs wild. You fund the fight, you free the child inside. It's time for Abe to rise to new heights. Stack that fuel, let him sharpen his mind. Pay Abe so he can grow. Take flight, load him up, watch him walk through the fire. It's time. It's time. It's time for Abe to rise to new heights. Frontline words and
Everybody's like, oh, what's happening?
What do
right
I do
now?
now, Mr. President?
Oh, man.
Abe's killing zombies.
How are you in
With a
two places at
flaming
once?
sword.
Yeah.
That's the question. That is the question.
Right.
I can't tell you.
And you'd have to kill
Mo-
It's
us.
not real.
Mo took the bait that's made for radical black people.
Oh, man.
Well, I didn't know Mo.
Hey, you want to expand on that?
Well, can I just say that Mo is passing, so I would have never guessed that he was Latino or Hispanic.
That's right.
It's
Mo,
meant to,
I'm not. I can't
why-
get your blood marrow now. You know,
That's why his camera's black and white. By the
I'll
way.
never get it.
one of us. One of us.
It's meant to trigger people like Freddie and Jalen who come on my panels and they're, what do you mean racism doesn't exist? I'm black. You don't
When,
know.
when
and
in
by the
any
way,
part of this did I
Marte-
look triggered? I've been having a great time.
No, I mean-
This has been hilarious.
No, not triggered like that. But like when I said this months ago, you're like, oh, I want to debate you on that. We're doing that debate, and I was like, wow, I mean, it's not that fun when you do it.
And by the way, shout out to Marte because I know
Right.
he wanted to be part of this, and just say, "I've got you, brother."
But then Marte did
He's
it
got
too, and
much
I
going
was
on.
like, well, Marte's like conservative or more conservative. Marte's like conservative guys. It's you know, I'm trying
I
to.
think if you lead with if your real claim is that it's snake language, you don't want to give the left power, then maybe just lead with that, and that should be the argument. The argument, right? Like, why is it like saying race and race doesn't exist? You're gonna get a crazy amount of people that are like, "What the hell are you talking
You're
about?"
picking
It's
fights with
gonna
the world.
overshadow.
Hold on.
You're
hold on.
overshadowing the real point.
Hold on, though, because if we look at this from the same scope as you and I were dealing with empathy before, it's the same claim. This is a word being used to harness control over
Exactly.
people through manipulation of a thing that is classifiably unreal. Other than your perspective of a person's skin color and the region they're from, the race isn't a different thing because we're all humans. We are one race. We're one thing. We aren't a bunch of different things. We are actually one. Genetically
they have similarities. Yeah.
When you were arguing about empathy,
but I've also I've kind of changed my. I think I'm changing my approach with the empathy thing a little bit to attack it from because I'll be honest, like the debate I saw with Rob, like he made a to my knowledge the best case for it as it has utility, right? But even that, I think I don't agree with
right now.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with that because that goes back to my super chat, right? Just because the left employs certain things doesn't mean we should adopt them, right?
Yeah,
right.
And when you do, when you fight for it, you give them power.
Right. But JS's argument actually does have a little bit of weight to it. Like, I come from a large family, right? I'm the second of 9 kids. I am the only one in my family who is blood type O negative. So none of my immediate family can actually donate blood to me or marrow. It's incompatible. How is that any different than, it's like also in my family we've got towhead blondes and we've got like almost black hair and the reds and the sandy black browns and everything else in between, but we come from the same mother and father. So like where can you actually say that genetically I'm more similar to them than anyone else who may be naturally darker melanated than I am?
Well, blood type is different across the board, so that's just a medical category that they use to do blood matching for donation.
Right, but they also have to match
really
your blood type to
do
the
with race.
marrow. Well, but one of the arguments or for race being a category was that people from the African continent cannot necessarily just easily receive bone marrow transplant from someone from the European continent, right? But I can't receive it from any of my direct siblings.
Well, I think he was saying that, but you do look the same, right?
I don't know. All I know, this is how we.
I look an awful lot like some guy named Brandon.
Brandon.
That's very true. Some guy named Brandon. Shout out to you.
Yeah, some guy named Brandon. Yeah, he's out there somewhere.
This is how we get hate speech logs and hate crimes.
What does looks have to do with it?
Nothing. I'm just arguing by proxy.
That's okay. Re-examination.
Right. All I'm saying is JS's arguments had a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
All
I'm saying is JS's argument has a little bit of validity to it.
This is an anecdote, but it's an interesting story. I knew a white guy, and he went to prison. Before he went to prison, he was what you would call I don't want to say the WIGG word. He was a thug. He was a white thug. You know, he listened to rap music. He went to prison. Well, you're not going to get accepted with the black guys in prison. So when he came out of prison, he had a Swazi tat. He ran with the Aryans while he was in prison. While he was in prison, he was full AB, Aryan Brotherhood, hung out with the white guys, said, F these N-words, F these N-words. When he got out, he kept that tattoo covered and he started hanging out with black guys again. He never really hated black guys. He just did what he did to survive. And so
what you're saying is you can pretend to be racism.
Pretend racism. Well, I think it's all pretend.
Yeah, so you can pretend to be racist, which would still entail that as racism.
I can make counterfeit dollars, but real dollars exist.
It's like 90% of everything's made up because it's all perception. So
if you can fake it, it doesn't exist. Hey, Emmett.
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 Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my god.
You're playing your intro. Wow, he has his own intro. He came in with his own WCW intro music.
Hey,
that's production right there.
It started here, man.
When does Emmett get the stored animation to where he's just like,
I'm actually gonna make one now that you said. Actually, I might have to make one where
I gotta get me some intro music. That sounds awesome.
Emmett, Count Emmett is fighting Abe, Vampire Hunter, because I think that's been a long time coming, and it has to be on a volcano in Yellowstone. So
I'm gonna make you a diss track, Abe.
Ooh, really? You're gonna?
Yeah.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah.
Like,
let's go.
Abe Dinkus.
This track.
Let's.
I got something to say.
You're gonna get the fuck dissed, okay?
Okay.
Oh shit.
He gets the Fourscore and stays in the corner.
Welcome to the theater,
what he's going to say.
Call me John Wilkes Booth.
Listen, Emmett. You're not grounded enough, my friend. You're not grounded enough.
We'll see.
Okay, well, we'll see.
Okay, Fourscore rap battles, new thing.
Yes. Did you see the White Knight of the Panelverse?
No.
You guys haven't seen the White Knight of the Panelverse? My God.
Well, there's
that was awesome.
Oh,
I'm not going to name names, but there's a competition, I think. But go ahead.
I don't even know how you watch any of that.
You don't know. You
no, I don't know.
Give me a second. Exactly.
I feel like game is breaking news right now. What are we talking about here?
Yes.
Now, when we say white, no kidding.
Racist.
Breaking news. PNN reporter shows up.
Are you sharing your screen, Emmett?
He should.
I'm not. Well, I can share my screen, but I'm not gonna share my screen. Give me a second.
That's another reason I won't believe in racism or race, because I'll become an ethno-nationalist, race realist real fast.
Why?
Wait, why is that the entailment of that? What the
hell?
If this description plays true, I'm just going to be racist.
That's a tomato. I get it.
That's hilarious.
Nice.
That's freaking hilarious.
What is on the horse's nose? Oh, that's a lance or
a lance.
It's a lance.
It's called a lance. Hello.
A horse had like a horn on its nose. It's a unicorn.
No. He
it's a nose unicorn.
It was a Pegasus Knight,
but
I had to take the wings off because I'm gonna use it on another model. So I made it. I made it the White Knight of the Panelverse.
It's a corny horse.
Where did Nate go? Nate just dropped.
Yeah, he ran away from the White Knight of the Panelverse. What are you talking about?
Yep.
There's a guy in my chat, Darth Thoranus. He's asking if that's a Klansman.
No.
I'm gonna throw this out there though.
But if you want a Klansman, I know a guy who's not Emmett, who you can contact at Count Emmett, who can make one for you.
Man, that's an unfortunate circumstance for your reputation.
That's true.
My reputation?
Well,
his reputation.
Listen, I heard a really good saying once. It's beware white knights, people. They're not the good guys. They're the ones hiding the dragon in the dungeon, waiting to see whom they may unleash it on. They don't slay them. They keep them for themselves. So.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like the sneaky
Yeah.
effers are the white knights, and
Speaking of the Klan, the
I
SPLC.
got my
Okay.
membership letter in the mail.
Good job on telling
Accepted
people.
me.
Good job telling people we don't exist.
Yeah,
The SPLC.
Yeah, good job. Here's your $7,000 deposit.
Fabricate racism
And your biker patch.
fabricated racism. They made up fake
Oh.
racism.
Oh, so they're being sued.
Yeah, they're being
for
sued because they were
false-
taking donors' money to fabricate
What do you know?
extremism and racism. Shocker.
What do you know? Yeah, shocker.
Right.
Not that any of us are shocked. Pull ties and all that.
Well, we all know the history of the Democrat Party here, right? The Klan and the bullwhip and standing in front of schoolhouse doors and the internment camps and the Trail of Tears. So nothing new.
So Emmett,
Yeah.
is race real and is racism real?
I would say after hearing all of these amazing arguments, I will say racism is fake and gay, just like empathy.
They.
I'm a transcendental racist.
Grounded.
Yeah, it's the race is human, and I hate them all. So that is the transcendent part of the racism argument.
I thought you were supposed to love them all, Emmett.
Oh, I'm not Jesus Christ.
Yeah. If you hate one, you hate all.
Yeah.
That's
So
another
I'm
reason.
hoping.
That's another reason racism doesn't exist. Because if you hate one person because of their skin color, you don't love anybody. You have no love.
But I will say this. I am also have also eyes, and I know that melanin toxicity is an actual case study, and you have to beware because it causes specific problems in the brain of individuals that have melanin toxicity.
Does that include like Indians?
Especially Indians. Especially them. They have a thing with visas that I'm not specifically fond of. So you have to be very aware of them people. The wall should be like 40 feet higher when it comes to the Indians.
Which wall?
In fact, do you realize that God made the Himalayas a way just to keep them in that specific part of the world? He was like, "Oh my God, what did I do?" So he created the Himalayas as
Himalayas?
high as
Himalayas.
as tall as possible. As tall as
Himalayas.
possible, so that they will not leave India.
Leave him alone. He's from Czechoslovakia. He doesn't speak English. Okay, calm
Yeah,
down.
the Himalayas.
So listen, Emmett. This is not my claim, but a claim has been made of you that you're a churchist. Okay,
I am a churchist. Yes, I
Okay,
believe.
I'm
I
just
believe in
checking.
the church.
churchist.
Dude, I thought Emmett was from like
purchased.
Ukraine this whole time, but he's
You thought?
I'm Czechoslovakian.
Czechoslovakian.
I did tell
Yes.
somebody earlier tonight, Emmett, that you do have sharpened poles in your yard waiting. So,
Yes, that's true as well.
yes,
Emmett the Impaler.
yes, Emmett the Impaler.
Every now and again.
But remember, he's a shapeshifter too. Like he's Emmett Goldwitz
Golden Steinberg.
Steinberg. So,
Emmett Witz, Golden
and Count
Steinberg.
Emmett
That's another.
and Goth Emmett.
That's
Oh,
another
I-
interesting one. Is
I am a churchist. Sorry, I will let you go. I'm a churchist, except when it comes to the Talmud, I'm a sola Talmuda. So I'm a Jewish Protestant.
but is Jewish a race or a religion?
Ah,
I don't know. I
Both.
don't care. It's whatever I interpret in the Talmud. That
Because
day.
you could be
That's what
black. You could be a black. You could have all the phenotypes of a black
Yeah.
person or a white person, but then they would say their race is Jewish.
It would depend on how I interpret the Talmud that day.
is that some kind of transubstantiation? Like you become it if you?
No, sometimes I read stuff on the Talmud and it tells me whatever I want to hear because I'm a Protestant Talmudist. It depends.
You gotta pray. You gotta pray really hard to get the answer you need.
Yeah, I get the inspiration from the whole
From the Sephiroth?
holy-
You're having
It's
an
not the Holy
identity
Spirit.
crisis, Emmett.
From the Sephiroth.
I just
Mission
get the
picking and choosing.
inspiration from the from The god. Yes,
God.
from the
This
god.
looks good. I'll take this.
Well,
Yeah.
most who got divine revelation after the fact were from a random angel that they gave random names, or they tried to write in that it was an angel that was already written.
Oh,
about
that's right. That's
prior,
right.
right.
I
Right.
get inspiration from the angel of the Lord. That's how it works.
So you're was it Joseph Smith 2.0?
No,
3.0.
no.
You found some golden tablets.
It's like a Southern Baptist, but instead of reading the Bible with sola scriptura, is the sola talmuda.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, this happened because a Jewish person was calling me a Protestant, and I said, "Well, yeah, I am. I do read my Talmud, and I interpret it myself."
Then
So-
we technically all protest Judaism.
Actually,
I
that's pretty
don't
true.
protest Judaism. I
Orthodox
just protest the
and Catholics
rabbis.
and Protestants.
Protestants, they all say
Even
come
the
to Christ.
Muslims. Even
Yeah,
the Muslims.
that's
We're
true.
all
are
Protestants.
protesting.
We're all Protestants.
Even the Muslims try to incorporate the New Testament with the Injil thing.
Indeed.
Uh,
Everybody's protesting it.
Abe, are you going to
Maybe
keep
just
going after
protest
this?
Islam.
Well, I put the link out for people to join, but
I don't
Yeah,
know
put
if
it in my
can-
chat too.
Maybe
I don't know if
nobody
I can
wants to be touched
raid
with
I'm
this
pasting
discussion.
you.
I'm pasting it into the StreamYard, so it should be going to every linked place. So any of your links come to, as long as they click the link. They just have to not be turds, and we'll be good.
Yeah. I will say this: whenever we talk about race, it's kind of weird for me because I don't understand what exactly it means, except because there's like 4 or 5 different definitions that people give. So if it's just a characteristics towards a tribe, I think you can say that, but I don't care about my hatred doesn't come with how you look, it's towards the tribe, right? I don't care who
Yeah.
you if you look like you're Indian, like Lodge, I don't dislike Lodge because he looks like an Indian. I dislike Lodge because he's a filthy atheist.
Mm-hmm.
So it has nothing to do with how he looks. It's just because it has to do with the tribe he belongs to, which in
Are
this
you
case is
sure?
the filthy atheist.
The
Yeah,
filthy
I would
atheist
rather-
tribe.
Are you
I'm in
sure
the
it's not
tribe of the black
libertarian?
conservative more than I'm in the tribe of the blue-haired white liberal.
Yeah.
We could say that, all of us.
Well, see,
Yeah, I don't like
that's
witches
actually-
either.
To bringing that up, that's actually something that in my debate with Rob, that was brought up, that was pretty on point. I think that tribalism is natural in humans, and that in-group tribalism to protect the people of your group, your nation, your town, your family, right, is pretty inbuilt in us. And it doesn't have to be like just because they're the same color or whatever. It could be we're all Christian. It could be we're all American. It could be, and I do think that there's a natural predilection in the human being for a type of tribalism. And he equated that. He equated the base parts of what we use as empathy as that, because there's a spotlight effect that is denoted in empathy within psychology, that there's always an in-group preference for earnest empathy, and that people who look like you generally gain the most empathy from you. The most attractive people, the most likable people, all of those things tend to get the empathy. And there's a spotlight effect, and I think that's due to tribalism. And I think we're kind of built that way.
Yeah, I don't
I
think,
think you're right on that part, Abe.
it's about
The
idealism.
the people.
How long Nate's always on a
Go
delay.
ahead, Jess.
I was just gonna say it's not about black and white. If we have to have an ism, it's idealism, because everything else is going to be arbitrary and just made up and subjective and inconsistent. It's idealism. I don't
think
like
it's
your
idealism.
ideas.
I think it's ideologyism.
I think it's
Yeah,
Christianity.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, you all
Yeah.
suck, including me. Get better. Find
That's
Christ.
true.
That's a good one. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So actually,
No,
it
okay.
brings up an interesting point here about tribalism. I guess on the question for the panel, is tribalism inherently bad?
No.
No.
It depends on what you mean.
Mhm.
Because if you say I am morally obligated to hate the out group and love the in group, irrespective, then that would be bad. But if you're saying tribalism in terms of like we are under threat based on some common perceived outward thing we have, then it's more efficient for us to stick together for our survival without having to hate the people who are persecuting us.
Even,
No.
even if we take the first descriptor that you gave there, Rex, would it be inherently bad to feel that way? Let's say if tribalism is attributed to Christianity versus atheism.
Well, Christianity, you're supposed to love everybody. You're supposed to the Father sends rain
you
upon
can hate their actions, right?
Yeah, but that wouldn't be tribalism because hating actions is not people group to people group. It's talking about actions. Tribalism is people group to people group.
Right, but Rex, you're also not going to allow like serpents in the garden, right? You're not going to let people who are seeking to destroy to continue to mingle.
No,
right?
No, but that's action based and goal based, right? So if we see somebody who's like a false, person who's trying to undermine us, then we kick them out. Yeah. I mean, that's prescriptive of the church, too.
Atheism doesn't have a color or a race. Atheism is an ideology or a belief, really. It's a religion, in my opinion. But
yeah,
but
that's opposition to an idea. That's not what I think. When I think tribalism, that's why it's good to define it. Because if you say, should we hate atheism? Absolutely. But do we hate atheists? Well, no. They're also made in God's image, just like us. We pray for them. We witness to them. We tell them to repent. And obviously, we should try and get some influence in the government so we can promote the 10 Commandments in the Bible in schools and everything.
Actually,
like
this is interesting. This is kind of a side question for you, Rex. I don't think I've ever actually engaged you in. Do you believe in the death penalty?
Yeah, I think that Romans 13 not only permits it but gives the basis for it. Yes, they do not bear the sword.
You can love someone and have love for them, but still like punish them for their actions.
It happened in the Old Testament all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Based. All right.
But you asked, is tribalism inherently bad? But I'd say no. But then when I think about it, it is the result of the fall. Like if there were no fall, then there would be no separate tribes. And like the Tower of Babel, God changes the language. In the Bible, it doesn't talk about race. It talks about peoples, languages, and nations.
I think it's inherently a trick question, JS.
Yeah.
I do, because tribalism can take any form, right? If we're saying tribalism as in you have a group of like-minded people that support each other, help each other, and defend and protect each other and uplift their goals and their mission, that's fine. But the moment that tribalism takes the form of a band of people in, say, Iran in the 70s that decide that they're going to overthrow a government, well, maybe no. Maybe we don't want that tribalism.
Well, and like, so sexism, is sexism inherently bad? Well,
yeah, I don't know.
Men and women's sports, that's not bad. Sorry, Nate, you go ahead, because I know he's on a delay, so we got to.
Yes. All you, Nate.
No, you guys are the main ones. I'm here to just kind of interject, but I mean, I guess one aspect of tribalism that I'd wished I'd paid attention to earlier in my life was septum ring theory. I mean, yeah, my dating history really proves that one.
Oh, and don't forget, beware the hair. If it's like really short or really unnatural colors, beware the hair.
Mm-hmm.
That's an aposematic mechanism.
Nature tends to make things that are poisonous very colorful.
Yes.
Well,
tree frog theory.
Yep. That's called an aposematic mechanism.
Yeah, tree frog theory.
There's a huge thing of outward dysfunction shows an inward dysfunction, and so
yes,
you're going to display the dysfunction that exists within you outwardly in some way, shape, or form. I think those are glaring examples to the whole of society. Something is wrong here. Walk away.
You will know them by their fruit.
Yep.
And part of that too comes with the people who have so much plastic surgery to look like lizards and wild cats and all that stuff. It's like something is deeply wrong with you. It's kind of like how an infestation. If you have an infestation, like sometimes you turn on the light and like they scatter, but once you start seeing them during the day, you know, whatever insects are in your place, that's a deep bad infestation that you just don't hide anymore. It's all over you. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, thank you. I also have another theory about tattoos. Anyone who has not actually participated in warfare, but is blasted in tattoos, and this goes for males or females, that is just as big a warning as for mental instability as multicolored, bright-colored hair and septum piercings.
Well, more people have tattoos than don't now.
Seriously, the like my what? Well, yeah, but also we're in like a 60% mentally ill society now.
Well, you served, Abe. So,
like I said,
what about
my
serving
theory
gives
actually
you-
my theory actually starts from right. That's where my theory actually starts from. Well, if they've actually served in warfare in wartime, right? They've actually then I do think ink can be a cathartic way to memorialize and draw it out of the mental, so that it's never gone. There's a physical representation of it, but it doesn't have to stay in the mental.
So
If
on
that
that
makes
note,
sense.
on that note, Nate, I was raised very strongly against any form of tattooing. And yet I have a bunch of tattoos and I'm a combat vet. But the thing that I've realized is the most important pieces of the verses or the structure about tattooing is you're not supposed to tattoo the names of ancestors, the dead, the fallen. All of those things are a sign or symbol of worship to, like, ancestor worship, which is very talked against in scripture. And then what you see is there was a huge move in ancient times to do that, to memorialize people who have died on their flesh outwardly. And I think there's a danger in that. Now, if you've just got iconography or symbolism or a story, that's different than like some level of either person worship or ancestry worship on your flesh.
I disagree with
that's
that.
an opinion. That's an opinion.
Well, let me ask you this, Abe. So, if you say ancestry worship, so if a guy has like tattooed a mom or whatever on his shoulder, or like a child who has passed away or something like that, would that be considered a sin?
I don't know if it's a sin, but I don't think that it's wise. I think there's something to that, because that's what the passages talk about, is to not mark the names of the fallen on your flesh. And so
let the dead bury the dead.
And so I think there's an inherent danger in that. I don't ask me why, but like for me, I was raised that no tattoos, and those verses were used as the reason you don't get tattoos. But those verses specifically state it's the fallen, like people who have died, people who are in your past or your ancestors aren't to be put on your flesh. And so when I look back at that, I'm like, oh, well, that's different than just a freaking tree or a butterfly or something that has some random beauty or aesthetic. It's different than a person who you knew, and now you've put the name of that dead person on your flesh forever, for the rest of your human life, at least your flesh life.
What do you think there is to that? Because it's like you're enshrining a memorial to a human as opposed to your body being a temple to God in all ways. Is that what you think it is?
Probably something along those lines. I mean, I'm like I said, this is just an opinion statement, but that felt inherently wrong to me, is to have the name of somebody who has fallen in battle. Like you are memorializing a person who has left this place. And ancestry worship is another one, because if you're worshiping ancestors, then you're putting people in the place of God in your heart at that moment, and so I don't think that's wise. Again,
Definitely not a
opinions here.
girlfriend or a wife. You seen it where they have like 4 different names and 3 of them are X'd out? They keep getting girlfriends' names tattooed on them.
Yeah, you can't tell if that's like a set.
tattoos. I almost got sleeves once, but I'm glad I didn't because what I would have gotten, I wouldn't match up with my current ideology.
Whoa.
Are you talking about serial killers, JS? Moria and the names and the X's.
You write your assassination list on your arm, and then once you complete it, 1, 2, 3.
Your hit list. Yeah.
Right. Sally's
like
gone.
Jesse's
gone. Megan's gone. They're all. Who's next?
All your victims. Yeah, there's an interesting thing. Why I said that if I believe in race and racism is I'll end up being a race realist or like an ethno-nationalist.
That's a pretty crazy claim. Can you expand on that?
Because
I don't see
when
I agree with JS.
When I look at crime rates and I see that certain races do the most violent crimes, when I look at the bell curve, I see different IQ levels in different races. There's the lunchroom study where they studied how kids in lunchrooms naturally group together based on race. They always separate on race. Churches separate by race. Then I start to. You have but generally, people will kind of.
Yeah, I've never been to liturgy and they all stack in a line based on race. That's kind of a crazy claim.
Oh no, but I mean there are more what you might call interracial marriages at my church than not.
Really?
So it's very and especially for like a very conservative, socially and politically kind of church, it's very rare. So I appreciate that a ton because I think that reflects.
Why do you appreciate that? First of all, that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, who are these?
Why wouldn't I appreciate that?
There's like
because it doesn't make any sense. It's so dumb. It's just humans marrying. It's like, I appreciate that there's a lot of black guys fucking a lot of white chicks. It's like, what the fuck does that mean? I don't give a shit about their race. Doesn't mean anything.
Okay, then it shouldn't bother
you.
It's
retarded.
Okay, cool.
That is virtue signaling, okay? What you just did there, fucking virtue signaling. I appreciate a bunch of black guys fucking all the white chicks. It's fucking stupid. It's retarded. It doesn't mean anything.
I agree. Okay? I agree that what you said was stupid and had nothing to do with what I said. So thank you for that.
That's exactly what you said. You said it with other
exactly
words.
What I said.
That's
my own words.
There's a lot of interracial mingling in my church. I appreciate that. It's so good. It's so good to have.
I don't know why
it's so good to have a bunch of black guys fucking all the white chicks. I love it. Oh my god!
I don't know why that got on your mind. I don't know why that got.
Wow.
I didn't know why that got on your mind.
I'm sorry. I'm saying the thing you said, but
no, you're not saying
a lot more direct than you are. I'm sorry. What do you think? What do you think people that marry interracially do? They just hold hands?
What you think that? Okay, you think that only interracial marriages have sex? What's your point? What is your point? You just get triggered over nothing.
Yes. I think marriage have sex. Oh my god! Whoa, blew my fucking mind out there.
Okay.
What do you think? I'm a lefty? It's like,
you're not tracking at all with what I'm saying.
The lefties are the guys that say, you get married and you don't get any sex. But I'm a staunch Christian. You get married and you get all of them, baby. That's what we do.
Dude?
We get on them babies.
Emmett, I don't even know what the point is of all this. But if I can make,
you can say that you don't know. But at the end of the day, what you're doing or what you did right there, okay, what you just did was virtue signal. Oh my god, I love the fact that we have a bunch of interracial marriage. It doesn't mean anything.
So let's just grant it. What's wrong with virtue signaling? Can you tell me?
Yeah, everything is wrong about virtue signaling because it's not actual virtue. There's no virtue in virtue signaling. Okay. You're not better. You're not better than most because you think you are. Because a bunch of black guys fuck a bunch of white girls in your church. That is exactly what you do when you're virtue signaling. Is you say, "Oh, I'm better. My church is better than yours because mine has a bunch of black guys fucking a bunch of white girls."
That's the dumbest thing. That's the dumbest characterization you could have made.
Hold on.
You can say that.
I know I can, and it's true.
Yeah, you can say that. It doesn't mean anything.
JS wants to leave. Let him do his spiel.
It's nothing long. JS Urban Adventures, check it out. Monday nights we do the Very Conservative Show, news and politics and social commentary, stuff like that. Friday and Saturday nights, streaming, panels, yelling at each other. And I'm working on reading the whole Bible live on stream, and we're in Daniel right now. We're halfway through Daniel, so that happens in the mornings throughout the week, randomly. So just subscribe and hit the bell, and then you'll know and all that good stuff. But we're working on 6K right now, so let's
Awesome.
get it. But thank
Thanks
you,
for coming
Abe.
up,
Thank you,
JS.
Mo. Thank you, Reexam. That was fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's fine, man.
Good
I
see
don't,
you,
I don't,
JS.
I
Had a
don't,
lot
I
of
don't, I don't get too contentious about it because it is kind of, to me, it's just like a fun thing to talk about. But it is interesting.
No, and
Understood.
I'm glad we had it in this format too, because it got a lot more out of it than just like a two-sided thing. I think this format's pretty cool.
Yep. All right, guys. God bless.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Agreed.
So yep.
God bless.
God bless,
Have a
man.
good night,
Later.
JS.
Later.
So, did he have more to his statement than just what he said? Because there is a possibility that there was more to the statement that made it not what you're saying.
He
Or
said
did you stop him?
yeah, I stop at the fact that he was virtue signaling about how good his church is because there's a bunch of black guys fucking a bunch of white girls, which means absolutely fucking nothing. I don't care about your race. If you
Well,
have
and that's-
families in your church, that means a lot to me. That means a lot more to me than if there's a bunch of melanin that likes to fuck a lot of less melanin. Whatever
Yeah,
the
but-
sex is, don't give a shit. Okay, and I like the white bunnies. Okay?
But what if his
snow bunnies.
statement? But what if his statement is
So
that you can see a unification through marriage and Christ that supersedes race?
yeah, because as I said at the beginning, I don't care about race as anything but a signifier of culture. So if you're talking about the culture that is signifying, as I mentioned with the idea of Lodge, I don't dislike Lodge because he looks Indian. I dislike him because he's a fucking atheist.
So my
It's
point.
the same thing. It's the same thing with the white chicks that have a ring. No, they look like fucking cows, right? And have a nose ring around their fucking nose. Okay, when I see the
Yeah.
cows over there being like,
wonder if they
"Ooh,
speak fluent
bullshit,"
goat
I don't.
with that.
Yeah, I don't like him. But it has nothing to do with the color of them. It has to do with the fact they're a bunch of witches.
Right.
Well, it has
Now,
to do with the heart
let me clarify
of the-
something that I think is going to help this. Martin Luther King once said that the most segregated time in America is Sunday morning. And that was true for a long time. And it's still true in a lot of ways. And I think that is, I think that's indicative of people maybe not necessarily being racist, but definitely feeling comfortable like this is a white church, this is a black church, this is a Korean church, and things like that. And I think it's more reflective of the kingdom of God to not let that be a barrier. That's all I'm saying. It's not that any couples are better than other couples or any churches are better than other churches, but what is indicative is if you actually see what Christ wants you to see in human beings, you're not going to let that be a barrier. And I think that the self-segregation stuff communicates a norm that is a barrier. That's all.
Yeah, but at that point, the question becomes what is exactly what God wants in his church? And if that is the case, we're going to have to go to church history. And why do we have to? And the way that we worship has to be the way that God decided that we should worship.
Which
not
has
the
nothing
way
to
that
do
we
with
want to
phenotype.
worship. No, because as stated, it's for both for the Gentiles and the Jews. So when the universality of the church came about, in the idea, especially during Acts, the whole point of it was to make it universal for both Gentiles and the Jews. But the way that you have to worship and the way that it's done, it's very different from virtue signaling, whether or not they are, the amount of melanin and how many of them are fucking each other.
Which is
It
not what I
doesn't
said
mean anything
anyway.
to me.
So you're just
It is the
mischaracterizing.
same thing because you're saying, "Oh, but
No,
I see a lot of people. I see a lot of couples, and they're different melanin levels, and they're together. Oh my god, that's so good, especially in such a conservative way. The fuck cares? I don't. You think? What do you think I want to conserve? When it comes to
What do you want to
conservatism, I want
conserve in terms of race? What do you want to conserve?
families,
Okay.
and kids. I want to protect and conserve the families and the kids.
Okay.
That is what I want to do.
Great,
I don't
so do
give
I.
a fuck about how many melanin is on your skin. I
No,
want to conserve the protection of the
I'm talking
kids.
about breaking down
Yes.
segregation. That's all.
Yeah, how many? You tell me, how is that gonna help the kids?
How's it going to help
family?
kids to break down segregation?
Yes, how is that gonna help the kids have a family?
How's it going to hurt the kids having a family? In fact, you have more options if you're not segregated.
Don't ask me a question. Answer my question.
It's a
How
dumb
is
question.
that going
It's
to help?
irrelevant. It's completely
Exactly.
irrelevant.
It's fucking irrelevant. I don't care. Doesn't
You
mean
care a lot,
anything to
apparently.
me in the part of conservative. No, I want you, if you're gonna make a claim about virtue signaling,
You made the
look
claim
at my
about virtue
virtue.
signaling. I never claimed
Look at my virtue. My church has a bunch of people, different melanin types,
Your
fucking
anger
each
is
other. It's amazing.
Your anger is entirely
when you're
invalid
gonna
and
say
unjustified.
that,
Sorry.
What
what you're saying that when you're saying that, that's the virtue. What is the virtue in that? None. It means absolutely
the
nothing.
virtue in
It's
fighting against
completely
segregation
irrelevant.
based on race.
I don't care. I don't care for the fact that it's not going to help conserve what I want to conserve. Which
What
is
do you want to
protection of the kid
conserve
and the
that it
families.
threatens? What do you want to
I already-
conserve that the desegregation
It's irrelevant.
threatens?
It is
What do you want to
irrelevant.
conserve? Wait, so it's irrelevant. What you want to conserve?
You don't get brownie points for doing something irrelevant.
But he didn't.
Then why are you doing something irrelevant?
No, you did it. I didn't virtue signal about how much I like, this
You virtue
melaninated
signal about,
individual
I like
fucking
families,
that
therefore
less melaninated
segregation?
individual.
Well, okay,
I didn't
like
say, oh
families.
my God,
I like
I have,
families,
oh
but
my
virtue
God.
signaling
Wait.
is bad.
What was?
Oh my
what was
God,
the-
there
wait,
are
what
so
was-
many people
Emmett,
here
what
of
was
different
the
races
actual
fucking
statement?
each other. Oh, it's so
No,
good. I give a
Emmett.
shit about that. It means
What was
absolutely
the actual
nothing.
statement made, Emmett? What was the actual statement? Was he saying
The actual
it's
statement
virtuous, or did he
made-
say he's happy?
Yes, he said that
he's-
it's virtuous. Well, I don't know. Would you be happy for things that are not virtuous?
Well, it could just be an opinion of joy that he's seeing families being built,
Yes,
absent the
segregation.
coloration separating them, right?
Fine. Why is the melanin important on that statement?
Nobody
Well, that's
said
what
that
this
melanin
episode
was
was about,
important.
race
Here's
and
what I'm
racism.
saying.
Why is the
saying
okay?
they're
Fine.
bleaching.
Why is the race important? I am happy that different races are forming families. Why is
Great.
the races
Great,
there?
then we agree.
Why
Then
don't
we
you
actually
say? Why
agree.
don't you say? I am happy that families are being formed. Why do you have to fuck? Why do you have to?
Didn't you stop him?
Fucking the race in there. Why?
What are you talking about, dude? I'm talking about.
Why do you
Can I
have
even?
to
Can I even
add
answer
it?
the question? Can I-
Answer my question. Why do you have to add race in the fucking forming?
Who said I had to add race? What I'm talking about is anti-segregation motion, which is good. I'm talking about exactly what Martin Luther King said when he said the most segregated time in America is Sunday morning. And if you can find more church, you don't care.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care if it's the most segregated time. Let's say that there's a. Let me put it this way.
Is it
I
okay
would
for somebody
prefer.
else to care?
No, I would prefer no because they don't. Give me a reason to care. Give me a fucking reason. Okay?
Nobody's asking you to care. I'm saying, is it okay
exactly.
for
Give me
other
a
people
reason to care. No, they're retarded if they care. Okay, I want to stop being retarded. So that is the point.
Well, there's one way you could do that.
If yes, thank you. I will off myself soon. Don't worry about it.
I'm not talking
The
about
point
offing
is-
yourself. I'm talking about stopping
Wow.
acting in a certain
that
way.
will stop me for being retarded. Anyway,
You are
when I was
ridiculous with the
talking-
words you put in people's
I
mouths,
am.
dude.
Oh, yes, I am. Anyway, so when I'm talking about the segregation, let's say that we live in a horrible segregated society. The black people is on one side, the white people is on one side. Both of them have 90% family. 90% of the kids live with both the mom and the dad. Don't give a shit. Better for them. That's exactly. I don't care as long as the kids have families, as long as the people have the family. That's amazing. Don't care. Okay. If I have a full-on, society, they all together, everybody's banging each other, and we have a 70%.
Nobody's talking about the banging.
70% rate that the kids are being raised without a dad. That society can go die. That's the way that I see it. So it has nothing to do with
race.
Exactly, nothing to do with race.
Great. So then
you tell me why
agree-
do you have to add to your idea of families are great, okay? And then you have to add a race to that. Why do you have to mention
I'm
the
talking
race?
about anti-segregation action. That's it. I don't know why you're
Why
so
is it
upset.
good? Yeah, okay, fine.
Why-
Why is that good?
Yeah, because why should we discriminate based on phenotype? Why should we?
Because apparently when we don't do it, we have a society that is quite literally 70% of the kids are being raised without a dad.
So wait, so if you have, if you break down,
do you want me to show you the numbers for the black society in America? Is that what you want me to do?
That's univariate.
Black,
That's univariate. That doesn't say anything about. That doesn't say
single
anything.
parent
Okay, that doesn't say anything about people of different ethnicities marrying each other. You're looking in fact, you're actually making your anti-point because you're saying, look, in this community, they're all marrying each other and they have these issues. You're defeating your own point.
Actually, that's
I'm not defeating my own point.
when they step outside of.
When in John Crow, when Jim Crow, how many of those kids that were in the black community were being raised without a dad?
Okay, how is that? How is Jim Crow causality for family unity?
I'm not making that claim. I'm telling you that when it comes to you bringing it up, okay, you're bringing it up. You're saying, "Oh, family! Look at these families being built that are. And it's so great because,
That's what you said. You said yay
more
family.
melaninated are." What?
You were like yay family, so you're making it sound like
I
we're
said
agreeing.
yay family.
Yeah, yay family.
Yeah.
Family is great. Yeah, we agree.
Yeah, and then you, if that was the only case, if you say gay family, I'm okay with that.
Also,
if you
boo
say
segregation.
gay family because race, and I'm gonna
Not because race. Not
yeah,
because
fuck yourself,
race.
I don't care.
Okay.
It is because race. What
here's-
would you
okay,
celebrating?
Here's what it is when you
Were
start
you
listening.
celebrating-
Here's what it is
Were
when
you
start
celebrating
listening.
the family, or
Here's
were you
what it
celebrating
is
the fact
when
that
you
they were a
start
bunch
listening.
of people of different races
Are
getting
you
married?
ready?
Which one were
Are
you celebrating?
Ready? Are you ready? Okay, so
Are you gonna answer my question or not? Which one were you celebrating?
The entire position.
him.
The entire position is yay family, boo segregation. Is that easy enough?
Why boost segregation? That you haven't tell me why should I care about the segregation thing?
Yeah, because it's anti-Christian. You already made that chapter. You already made that fact from Acts.
The anti-Christian?
You said yes. You already made that argument from the book of Acts when you're talking about the church.
When we talk about the church, I was talking about specifically that we should worship the way he wants to be worshipped.
You talked about
How do
how
you
there's
know?
a lack of division
Okay.
between Jew and Gentile. That was another point that you made
Yes.
that's actually relevant.
Yeah, I know. But the fact that we have concentrated so much about the desegregation and the effects of the desegregation is that 66% kids without a parent, without both parents in their household, okay, in the
You
black
said-
community,
you said-
should
okay.
tell you something about it. Because
What-
it was 20% when we were super segregated. So maybe we shouldn't fucking focus on,
Okay.
oh my god, the segregation of the fucking races. We should focus on the fact that we are raising a full generation of kids without both of their parents.
Okay, so Jim Crow saves black families. Is that your argument?
No, that's that is not my argument. My
Then
argument
what's your
is that
point
every
about
single
segregation?
time. My point is that every single time you focus on race as a supposed virtue, which is not a virtue, you actually are denigrating the actual virtues that we should be following, which is, for example, family, which is, for example, the protection of the kids.
Great. Yay family, boo segregation.
I don't care about segregation. Why should I care? You haven't answered me that. Why should I care about
If
segregation?
you don't want to care, you are free not to care.
Why should I care about it?
Okay,
Why is it a fucking virtue?
Okay, so it's not a vice to hate somebody based on their perceived lineage. Is that what you're saying?
I don't hate them. I just want them away.
I'm not
from
talking
me.
about you. I'm talking about in general. Is it a vice to
Yes,
hate somebody
they
based on their
don't
perceived
hate them.
lineage?
They don't hate them. They just want them away from them.
Okay, yes or no?
I don't hate the Mexicans, but
I
they
don't
can
care
go
about
back to
you.
Mexico.
I'm talking about in general.
I don't care. I don't care about Indians in H-1Bs, but I want them fucking gone from
Okay,
the
you won't
U.S.
answer
and
the
taking
question.
away the
You
H-1B.
won't answer the question. Fine. You don't know if it's a vice or a sin, whether or not to hate somebody based on their perceived lineage.
You're adding hate, and I don't understand where
That's
you're
what
getting the
racism
hate
is talking
from.
about.
No, I don't hate them. I just want them away
I'm
from
not
me.
talking about. Okay. So does that mean that translates
You're
to segregation?
asking me.
Wait, you want them
Yeah,
away from you
you're asking me
via
about it.
law?
Yeah.
Via law.
Yeah, why not?
Okay. You
Why
can have,
not?
You can have the rest of the time. I'll just listen to you now.
Why not? Can you give me a note of why should I have him on my society? Why should I have? Okay, fine. Let me put it another way. Why should I have atheists in my society? No. Okay.
Wow.
I don't know how it works.
So
in the long
so
run.
Emmett, to kind of clarify, your attack angle is based on kind of ideologies, and you're saying that in the Christian paradigm, segregation shouldn't even be considered, or as a virtue, or some sort of like thing to focus on. what really matters is families and making a bunch of babies.
Yeah, the way what I would say is if you're saying, for example, in the church, you don't care about who comes to the church, it's about who is in the church. And the celebration of the church is the community of the church and the virtues of the community. And your amount of melanin is not a virtue. So if you
Right.
get married, you celebrate the marriage of the people and the family
Obviously.
of creation. If you celebrate the people around it, I will never go around and be like, oh my god, you know my church? There's a bunch of black guys fucking a bunch of white girls. It's so good. It's incredible. Oh my god.
But that's
Fucking
not-
retarded. Don't give a shit about that. It's
That's
so
some-
dumb.
That's a little bit messed up framing, because I think he was literally piggybacking on the whole idea of this entire debate, which was race and racism. Like, do they exist? And if they existed throughout history, we're seeing a move away from hatred of a person due to their skin color, and he's happy to see families being developed, even though it used to be the case that you didn't see a interracial family in a church together. That was very almost impossible in the US, but now he sees it and he's happy to see that. Like,
I don't
I'm
see
curious
what is the
why there's a problem with him feeling happy at seeing an interracial couple in his church.
the interracial is the problem. Why should we see that as a virtue, Abe? What is
No,
the virtue of seeing that? Why should I feel good about it? What is the good of having an
I don't think-
interracial couple?
I think the claim that's being made is he just is happy to see that there's a breaking down of people hating
Yeah.
based on skin color. And so that's inherently seen through people falling in love with and building families.
Okay,
with
fine, but the
people
the
they're
way that
choosing.
we got to that point, okay, the fact that we have the fact that we've got to this point by literally destroying the lives of kids, okay?
Did
Because
the people in his church do that?
what we have
Did the couples in his
we're
church do
we're
that?
talking about the generality of it. Is the general idea. The fact that we have focused so much on this retarded thing
We
that
who?
quite literally the race is, you know,
We who?
oh my god, how dare people call me racist? In fact, we make it such a big deal about being called racist. Oh, the fact that we got there by literally destroying families, and now we're like, oh, we're gonna virtue signal because we have some melaninated individuals, means nothing. It means nothing. It's just virtue signaling. That's
Did
what
you
it
have
is.
like a different debate right before this that had to do with the same topic in some way, shape, or form?
I've had many debates on race. And my idea
No, I
of
mean,
race has
like,
been always
right
been the
before you
same.
came here.
No.
Okay. Just curious because you came in like a solar flare on the ass of a fire donkey.
I'm really mad about other stuff, so I'm venting as well.
I can tell.
Fuck, it's fucking. There's a
I know.
fucking
I know what it is,
individuals on
too.
the internet that have been
Screwing with your
doing
thing.
bullshit.
Yep.
and then yeah, fucking I hate virtue signaling. I do. I really don't like virtue signaling. I have that. My idea of virtue signaling, okay, is the idea of if you want to go, and this is just my opinion. Don't take it for granted. It's not true. Whatever. I'm not talking authoritatively, but whenever I see people virtue signaling, it reminds me of the story of the lady of the lady given wealth in the temple.
Mhm.
That just there's this guy's giving all this wealth and everybody's cheering on them, and then she has just a coin and gives it,
Mhm.
and then Jesus Christ look at her and tell her to that she has been blessed and to go on with her life, and then people ask him like, why do you say that? And he's like, well, when you do anything that's virtuous, don't tell anybody. If you say something, if you do something with your
Sure.
right hand, don't let your left hand know.
Yeah. I know the verses.
So
Like-
it's really one of the things that
Right, but my
pisses me off
question
is
then,
virtue
Emmett,
signaling.
would be he didn't claim virtue for any action he himself has taken, just something he witnessed that he thought was good.
Well, yeah. What is the virtue on
something
that thing
I-
he witnessed?
I don't think every claim that people make in general is virtue claims. I think if somebody found joy in seeing something that they think is good for the world, or at least for their community, do they need to have a virtue claim behind that?
W-
Because if we were
If you're
debating
gonna
it,
if you're
sure,
gonna
maybe.
make a virtue if you're gonna make a virtue claim, yes.
So by that logic, saying that you think that Jim Crow is better because it preserved families, is that virtue signaling?
No, that's just a statement of fact.
Okay.
If in
Is family
in Jim-
virtuous?
Jim, yes, of course it is. If
Did
in
Jim
Jim
Crow
Crow,
promote more families?
no,
Were the family numbers higher in the black community during Jim Crow?
yes, but it was not a
Well, that
promotion.
His
doesn't
family a
entail
virtue?
the entailment, but that doesn't that entailment. That is not that it was promoting Jim Crow, was promoting families. That I think that's a
Yeah,
bit of a
no.
stretch.
Actually, if you really want to break it down, if segregation kept black communities together in their own
Yeah.
areas, in their own sections, then it promoted the building of black families. Then it would, in that case, make it so
Well,
blacks
I think
had
maybe
to
you could
build
say it's a
families within their own
byproduct.
communities.
Yeah,
It's like a byproduct. I don't know if it's
byproduct.
like I don't know if it's promoting. To say a certain policy is promoting something like directly is a different statement than saying that like a policy is put in place and it has byproducts that weren't necessarily thought of when the policy was put in place.
Have
I
you
don't
ever
think
seen
when they
that
put Jim
part,
Crow.
Vince?
I don't think when they put Jim Crow laws in place, they thought we're going to promote family. Right? I don't think that was the goal
Yeah, no.
or the intent.
What meme? What am I showing? What meme?
I told him he already showed the meme. He showed up on panel. He is the meme.
Interracial.
You said he sent your.
Hold on. Oh, okay.
No,
hold on.
it's not about that. We're talking about the virtue of it. I see family is a virtue. I don't care about the color you are. When I see people getting married, the virtue is in marriage, not in the melanin content.
Is
Great.
there a
When I see
problem with
people
him being
saying,
descriptive.
I agree.
when I see people saying, "Oh my God, my community is based on X thing," instead of
All right, look. Even I think that's pretty funny.
That is funny. Bravo, JS.
Shut me the fuck
Well
up.
played, JS. Well played.
Okay, so for me,
He should have put that in his
is-
closing.
Yeah. For me, that is a virtue. The virtue comes from, the fuck is smoking in my house?
Your head.
Holy
It's
shit!
probably pouring out your ears.
No, someone's smoking weed in my house. Holy fuck! What the fuck's going on? I'll be
Being
back.
squatted.
So you start hearing noises from the attic.
Yeah, basement squatters.
Yeah.
Hot box in his
Yeah.
basement.
That is it is a very strong smell.
I think I kind of understand where Emmett's coming from, and his claim is partially that we should cheer families and leave race out of it because it's unimportant in the grand scheme of the spirit.
I
and soul of
agree. I agree.
people.
You don't have a better family because you have a quote unquote interracial
Right.
family. That wasn't my
And I
point
know you
at
don't.
all. My
I know.
point was that I am glad that there are sins being done away with, and here is proof positive evidence of that. That's all I was saying. I wasn't going around saying, hey guys, this is the place where, sex happens between two people with different melanin content. That's a ridiculous, stupid mischaracterization of what I was saying.
So Rex, question for you though. Would you agree though that in modernity, like when you look at ads and propaganda and things like that, that it is pushed as a virtue and they focus on it a lot?
Yes, there is a leftist thing that says
Yeah.
you are more virtuous if you like quote unquote race mix, and that's not true.
Well, it's more along the lines, gents, that you are more virtuous if you love everyone outside of your in-group more than you love your in-group.
But it's only
That's-
focused on white people when it does that, though. It never prescribes that for anybody else that's called anything
Right.
other than white.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we can all identify that. We all see that there is an issue in that because it's a fake action. It's a distortion of, and it goes right along with like the suicidal empathy type movement. It has that same release all the prisoners because of their skin color. Don't
Yeah.
charge people because of, like, all of that falls into that same nasty virtue-y, virtue, you know?
Right, doing the wrong thing because you feel bad for somebody because you think they're ontologically victim.
Which is the actual racism.
That's part of racism, yeah. Yeah, that's one
It's
version
actually,
of it.
Here, I have a question for you guys, and it's an interesting one because it's tangential to the conversation we just had. Do you think that the N-word is more racist in its use today against white folks than it is against the black community?
I don't know if I understand the question. Are you when you
Okay,
say
so
if somebody
I'm gonna
calls a
actually
white
lay it
guy
out.
the N-word?
No, I'm going to actually lay it out. So if you say the N-word in the wrong place, you'll probably get dead.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So you, in almost all senses, are unallowed to say a word. Your speech will be governed by those around you, depending on where you are, in a massive way. Is there a word that other skin-colored people can say that will have that same effect? Or is it only white people saying the wrong thing about others that has that effect? Like,
No, I
we
think
can't use those words.
I think because of leftists, typically white people are seen as more inherently evil for every action. We're like on stilts of evil,
Mhm.
you know. So everything we do that is wrong is more wrong in greater degree, you know, in the minds of leftists because of what we are. That's why I say that wokeness usually if not always, breaks down to actions are not moral or immoral. People groups are immoral and immoral, and their groupness justifies their action.
Right.
Yeah, I think I see the point you're making, Abe, and I do think that in modernity, it is
a
kind of
weird-
like it's racism to a large degree because it's basically because you can see this with like even like Hispanic groups, like a lot of them seem to be allowed to say this word, but the moment it's a white person,
Mhm.
it's open season essentially.
Well, and I know
So
that
it
in
is
Mexico
a
it's
weird
used
thing.
normally. Like it's
Yeah,
not a big deal in Mexico the way that it is in the US. I know this to be
right.
true. And so it's just it's a weird
It wasn't.
state.
It is now. It's becoming. You know why?
It's,
Because we're importing your culture. With virtue comes from race. It's funny because in the past it was like, oh, you're just poor, and we hate you because you're poor. Now it's yeah, you're white. And it's funny enough because it quite literally certain people the way that they've done it is by calling people whitesicans. So I know 100% that it comes from the US
you're the
because it's
whitest
quite
Mexican?
literally. Well, I would be a whitezican. I wouldn't mind
I
that.
told you
Wouldn't
you're
mind
the
saying
whitest
that.
Mexican. I told you that like partially when we first met. I told you you were the whitest Mexican.
But this is
I
this
thought
is
he
the
was the
problem
most
that I
Jewish
see.
Mexican.
It's
That's only because
So
of
the problem that
avarice.
the problem that I Avarice is not Mexican. He
No,
is.
I'm saying he accused you of being Jewish.
Yes, he did. Well, I'm a Sola Talmuda guy, so
Just keep saying it.
I'm
It
sorry.
doesn't help that when you
that-
show up on panel decked out in Jewish garb too.
I have the Hava Nagila rap. Okay, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, I'm just saying, it doesn't help your case.
Tiny hat, people town, rolling tankers deep. Yeah.
And it's a nerd.
So the
Yeah.
what I have seen is we're destroying the actual virtues that we should be happy about, what you should be encouraging, and we have put virtue in something that is completely irrelevant. It's like Pride Month, right? Pride Month is the same thing. It's like, oh well, I know a lot of gay guys. It's like, okay, good to know that you know a lot of fucking guys that know how to fuck. It's that simple, right? It's the way that it works, the way that we're looking at things, where we're putting the actual virtue is kind of
Well, it's
dumb. It's
whacked
like, yes,
out. You're
I
not
enjoy.
wrong. That's why you see
I-
people say where they're from immediately because it has some level of
Yeah.
importance, or they tell you what their sexuality is right off the bat because it has so much importance. You're right. There's a complete misalignment of what values are, what virtue is, and we see it all over the place. We see people
Or
utilizing
instead
something
of
that has nothing to do with virtue as a virtue.
yeah, or instead of being like, I go to my church and I see all of these kids together playing. I see all of the kids, and that makes me happy. You're like, oh, I see people with different ethnicities, and they're married. It's like, oh, the fuck cares about that? You know, the actual things like, oh, I see all these kids there. That's fucking awesome.
There's a ton of kids.
Okay?
There's a ton of kids
amazing.
too. But I guess
Yeah,
virtue
and
signaling.
that's awesome. But I'm not gonna fuck. I don't care about how many. I saw a little lady from
But
the south side of Asia, and I
Right.
saw this guy was white, and
But
they
Emmett,
got married. Oh my god!
can't you see
That's
how
stupid.
the discussion we just had was about race and racism, and how we as created in the image of Christ should see others as worth something, and to say that you're happy to see that is.
Oh, I have so
that
many
they're being
bad jokes
seen.
right now.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, I know, but I have so many bad jokes. Why you do this to me, Abe? Okay.
I'm about to fight you. That's what's about to happen.
I'm
about to actually start
We're
debating you.
We're going to
Start
Yellow.
start
We're
the
going to
beef
Yellowstone,
early.
baby. We're
You know
going
what?
to Yellowstone.
The rap
You
battle.
won't even be able to reach me, guy. I'll punch you from like a
Ooh.
mile away. You won't even know what hit you.
I'll hit your nuts.
Oh, he's
Abe.
targeting your
That's what I'm
phenotypes,
doing.
It's gonna send
All
a
I'm gonna
scud
do
missile.
is dive,
gonna call
dive
you a
direct
hobbit
to your
the whole
nuts.
time,
That's
too.
all I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna call
do.
you
You
a
can call me a
hobbit.
hobbit, you fucking giant. Okay, I'm not, it's gonna be David versus Goliath.
It will.
I don't care.
Except for you don't have a sling and you're not coordinated enough to use one. So
You're not Jewish.
I'm Sola Talmuda. We're talking about re-examination.
What are you
I'm
talking about?
obviously Jewish.
what are you talking about?
The angel of the
Hey,
Lord would be
hey.
with me. Okay.
Emmett, I'm waiting on
I
that.
finally
I'm
got
waiting
it.
on that. I'm waiting on that diss track. Don't make me wait too
Uh,
long because I might release one before you.
It'd be funny if he already had it. He already has it.
Oh,
He's-
Right.
you're gonna
You might.
you're gonna you
Emmett.
listen. You AI bros with your AI broish. Okay, you're gonna go around. You're gonna be like, yeah, my God, you put your. I have to produce my shit. I have
Oh.
to produce it.
Oh.
So yeah,
Oh.
I'll make it though. I'll make it. You're gonna love it.
Careful what you wish for.
I had an Abe.
I'm looking forward to all of this. I just gotta say, as a bystander, this is gonna be
Right.
great.
For what
Yeah.
you wish for.
Epic rap battles of history continues with Abe
Epic rap
Dinkus.
battles of history.
Yeah, count
We have to
Emmett
do
as
something like
Abe
that because it'll be
Dinkus. What
something
the-
different. It's gonna be like epic rap battles of Panelstein. Although I'm not in
Unfortunately,
panel,
I-
I'm not in
change that, though.
Panelstein.
It'd have
right
to be
now.
like gargantuan rap battles of Panelstein or
Gargantuan rap battles
of
of Panelstein.
Considerably significant rattle. I'm going to sleep now.
if I have this community over here, Cool has the Cool verse. What is mine?
The Dinkus verse.
Hmm.
The zombie.
The Dinkiverse?
The zombie bear.
The zombie verse.
Hmm.
The Fourscore verse.
I did. Oh, that's a good one. I did play on the fact that I wear this top hat all the time and called all of my memberships hatters. And like the highest level is a Mad Hatter because, you know,
Yeah, there you go.
Mercury's a thing.
The distinguished hat community. Little lengthy. Needs work.
The A Brigade. You know what? What should
A
we call
A
it? I
Brigade.
know what should we call it. What should we call it? The Civil Wars. The Civil Warriors.
Civil Wars. Civil Warriors.
How about the
Yeah,
Union?
the Civil Warriors. Oh, that's actually a cool name, the Civil Warriors. Because we're civil and we're
We're
warring.
civil.
We are very civil. This whole encounter has been very civil. I agree.
Shut up, Mo. It's not virtual civilly, Mo.
Mostly peaceful.
You're dealing with a Mexican spurg, Mo. The mostly peaceful protest. Okay?
I told my chat like Emmett on a panel being triggered the longer he's on, long enough timeline approaches one.
I'm serious though. I'm gonna actually ground you and smack you around. That's what's gonna happen.
The Civil Warriors. I like the Civil Warriors.
Well, gentlemen, I've had a great time. This has been fantastic. Rex. That was really fun. I
Yeah.
appreciate the exchange. I also appreciate the great layup and on the with your cross examination. That was
with
hilarious.
Otobenga.
That was- Yes, with Otobenga.
I know that was going to be like so hard to get out of, because like how do you fracture that into no? It's just people hating people. I don't think so.
they locked him up because he looked like a monkey.
That was the only movie he had left. That was really the only movie he had left, and I knew it. And,
That was hilarious.
And it just because I watched. Here's the thing that Mo and I were on that panel after Marte and JS had that debate, and it was like kind of jarring because Speakeasy was on arguing from JS's side. And I think he was using stronger arguments than JS was at the time, if I had to guess. But part of JS's strength was how it was so hard to make sense of what he was saying, because he said, well, people share 50% of their DNA with bananas. So if you hate bananas, are you racist? I was like, what? Like huge non sequiturs like that. And so it wasn't so much the strength of the force of the logic as the strength of the force of the illogic that we had to contend with. And you're like, what? If I'm going to take this in good faith, how am I going to understand what he's saying? But yeah, I think, Mo, you've been preparing this for a while. I've been somewhat preparing it for some time. And when I discovered or thought of the example of Otobenga, that was it's a very strong example.
Yeah, it was interesting. I got to. I was pretty pleased with how it all turned out. It was a great time, very hilarious. But
Yeah.
Abe, thanks for putting this together. This is fantastic. I look forward to more. Let me
There will
know.
be more.
I will be out of town starting actually this Friday, and I won't be back in town until about the 3rd or so. So everyone out there, I'm not disappearing or going away. I'm just going on a little family trip, but I'll be back. But other than that, come find me on the channel, Mo Rebuttal, tags everywhere. Give me a like, trying to get to 500, creeping my way there. And thanks for everything, and God bless, guys. I'll check you out next time.
Yep. God bless. Have a good night.
Good night.
And then there were 3.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, it is getting late for myself too. I got 2 jobs to hit up in the morning, so one after the other, rather, not both in the morning. But yeah, fun debate. Thank you once again, Abe Dinkus, for hosting it. I think Mo also put up a very strong presentation for his side. I wasn't exactly sure how he was clinching it, but I also wasn't exactly sure how I would clinch it either. There were just things I had gaps in that I think needed to be filled, but I don't think that was like strong enough. However, I do think I held my ground decently well. And JS, let's just hope he doesn't have a whole lot of clips on his hands after the at the end of this. But
Probably.
Emmett, good to see you. Have a good night. Abe, good to see you. Have a good night. And
Thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
God bless. Good night.